Hi, how you doing? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the program. It's Tuesday here. It is January 13th, and thus we have returned to once again speak about video games in a news and views that you can use is what we've got on tap here on display for all to see. I'm Jeff Gerstmann. Hello. Welcome to the program. If you'd like to support the program, you can head over to jeff.zone. That'll take you over to the Patreon, where you can learn more about how to get an ad-free version of this very show in audio format, as well as access to the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame, and so much more. Head on over to jeff.zone today and learn about it. It's been a long time coming, but this week we finished Astrobot. I had not finished Astrobot. When Astrobot came out, I played, let's call it somewhere between 70 and 80% of Astrobot, and got to a point with it where I was like, this is really great, but I have other stuff I need to do, or and just kind of never got to the actual end of the game. And so with my son getting into it, he started his own save and started playing that way, and then he said to me, I started loading up your save because you have a lot more. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, all right, great. Fine, whatever. And so we started playing on my save, and he he's been I don't know, man. I don't know about him. We gotta figure something out. There's, he just wants to play video games. I've said it before. Like there's just kind of a he doesn't want to do anything else. Once he's doing something else, he will have a great time. But like getting him to move and getting him to get out, go out in the backyard and play. Go do this. Go, it's time to go to school, like that sort of stuff. Like the school thing, like this morning was especially just like, I don't want to go, and I worry that he's just like laying around at school. And the preschool sucks, dude. It is a bad, if we had known now what we knew back in like September, we would have pulled him out then, if we had known how it was going to go. But the preschool, the teacher who we loved from when our older daughter was in there, she had to leave like 2 weeks before the school year started, and it was kind of an emergency thing on her part, and she's gone. So they had to rush to fill the roles, and it's just not, it's not good. The program, the people they've put in place, the things those people are doing, like, it's not a learning environment, and it's preschool, but it's not always supposed to be, not all preschools are going to be focused on like, all right, here's the math, motherfucker, but it's just, it's barely above like a daycare, man, and so it's no wonder he's not having a fucking good time, and so trying to pull apart how much of this is dude just wants to rot and play video games all the time, and I should probably stop him from doing that as a parent. And then how much of it is like, okay, he really doesn't legit doesn't want to go to school because they don't fucking do anything. Like they sit around and then they go to the park and they play and then they go back and there's just jack shit happening. So it's like trying to parse all that out is like really, really fucking frustrating. And I'm not really sure what to do. But because it's really fun to play games with him, and he's, he is smart and all of that stuff. But they're not teaching him as well as they could be. He could be learning more. I suppose we could be, focusing on teaching him more a little bit as well. But compared to what the program was a couple of years ago, it's a real shame that it's no good now. But yeah, so I don't know. We've been playing Astrobot a lot, and we finally finished the game. We don't have all the robots or anything like that yet, but we got to the end of the game yesterday, and I didn't think, the nostalgia stuff throughout Astro Bot as you're playing it, I think is kind of whatever. Where it's like, here's a robot that looks like Crash Bandicoot. Here's a robot that looks like Aloy. Here's a robot that looks like the Helldivers guy. It's just like, here's a robot that looks a little bit like Rayman. That was the one that I went like, all right. Like there's fun little stuff in there, but when you think about Astro's Playroom and the way it was such an effective homage to the entirety of PlayStation, this just feels like most of the game feels like a bit of a letdown compared to that. Gameplay's better, the levels are more engaging, like all that other stuff, but in that specific way, I think it's kind of a letdown. And I would say that's to be expected. You can't do that shit twice, right? But they do. They actually, the end of that game is kind of fucking amazing. The way that they pull together all of this PlayStation hardware and all this other stuff in a really cool kind of end game scenario. It ends up being really neat in a way that I didn't necessarily expect. And so that was nice to see. And so finishing it finally unlocks the levels that have leaderboards and the time trial levels and all that stuff that I kind of wanted to see all along. And so finally unlocking that stuff and then realizing actually these time trial levels, the first batch of time trial levels are all based around the items you get, like the clock that stops time and the dog that makes you boost forward and stuff. And I was like, I just want a bunch of levels that are regular ass Astrobot, but harder. And so they have another set of levels that are those. And so there's more to do, I suppose. I don't know. That's it. That continues to be a very neat game. If you somehow missed it when it originally came out, and you own a PlayStation, you should check that out. That's a game that has not come to PC. I was trying to think what are the games on PlayStation that you can only play on a PlayStation. It's kind of a low number of games. As they've brought more and more stuff over to PC, obviously they wait their 6 months or whatever it is, but it's it's Astrobot and it's Gran Turismo, first party Sony stuff. That Demon Souls remake never went anywhere. But Ratchet went over, and just about everything else. Yeah, Ghost of Yotei has not made it over yet, but presumably that will come to PC in a few months here, right? But both Astrobot games are kind of kind of crazy. Returnal came to PC. I played probably more Returnal on PC than I did on PlayStation. Bloodborne is not a PlayStation 5 game, thanks. But thanks. Anyway, thanks. But yeah, there's not a ton of and there's a couple of VR things, right? Like the Horizon VR game and we already said Gran Turismo, but that's not all VR. But yeah, it's a relatively low number. And Astrobot is on one hand, I'm more people should play Astrobot. But on the other hand, I'm I get why you wouldn't put Astrobot out on PC when it is such a specific celebration of the history of PlayStation. It is a little weird. Here's this game where you are, literally reconstructing a PlayStation 5. And that would be kind of strange to do. Strange to do on PC. Zatoichi says, I can't see current Gran Turismo coming to PC just because they'd be paranoid about cheating with the online and so on. I mean, that stuff's solvable. It's not, I don't know. You could just not do crossplay if you wanted to. I think when I look at the Gran Turismo on PC thing, I think about it more from a compatibility standpoint and the standards that people expect from a driving game on PC when it comes to peripherals and all of the other insane stuff that people are into. And you know, doing that work to get Gran Turismo ready for that, I think would probably be pretty substantial to do. And I wonder if that's sort of a thing. But yeah, I don't know. That's you know, that would be one that would make a ton of sense on PC. I wouldn't be shocked if not Gran Turismo 7, then probably by the time they do another one of those, I would assume that that stuff finally does start making its way onto PC. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, like on some level, I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to do the first party Sony games on a Switch and stuff like that. Like it feels like that's kind of not necessarily that far off in the grand scheme. But yeah, I don't know. There's sort of a weird thing there. Alma says, I don't understand the Bloodborne Demon Souls thing if God of War gets to be on PC. Well, Sony owns God of War outright. Bloodborne and Demon Souls are partnerships with From Software. And so when they make a new Bloodborne thing, when they make a new Demon Souls thing, some of that money goes to a company other than them. And so it is inherently less lucrative as a result. When they put God of War out on PC, they go, cool, man, we're going to sell all these copies on PC and we get all that money. Word. And so it's, you know, just kind of worth it. It's more worth it for them to do it. You could try to make the case of like, well, Bloodborne would sell more than, and maybe that's true, but like the work is inherently less valuable because they have to split that money with someone else. Like if you want the real reason why Bloodborne has not reappeared, it's, you know, I'm sure that there are people at Sony who would love to do it. There are probably people at From that would love to do it. And I'm sure that any talks they've had around that has been like, oh, well, here's what the terms would look like. And they go, yeah, okay, all right, good to know. We'll talk about this some other time, you know? And, you know, maybe eventually they will meet at a time when they go, oh, this actually makes sense for us to do now. You know, because we've done everything else or whatever. But like, I do think that there's just, you know, From is out there making other games. Like they're not slowing down. Like they're continuing to make more and more games for themselves in a lot of cases, not always just for Namco and certainly not always just for Sony. Like From's got bigger fish to fry. They're out there going like, we're going to make whatever this fucking Switch game is that's going to be a multiplayer thing and people will love it, right? Hope so. It looks neat. I don't know. The people who like Night Rain seem to really, really like Night Rain, but also it really seemed like there were people who came away from really enjoying Elden Ring to like going, oh, Night Rain is not what I'm looking for in this style of game. And so I think the success of Duskbloods or the how well Duskbloods does will end up being really interesting. You know, like it'll be them taking another crack at a multiplayer thing and what's that going to look like and how's that going to go. And, you know, it seems very experimental for them still. Like Night Rain certainly is in a few ways, but also like Duskbloods seems like looking at Duskbloods, you wonder like, is this like a small thing they're making? You know, did Nintendo get the small From Software game? Like, yeah, we got an exclusive FromSoft game. Like, yeah, you did. It's Duskbloods. It's like they're doing some crazy shit on it, but it ain't gonna be the next big game from Software. Like, it's hard to say, right? We'll see. But that I think that to me is more interesting than just another one of those games coming to the Switch too. Like Duskbloods at least has the opportunity to be something dramatically different, right? So we'll see. I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out this year what the hell that thing even really is. But yeah, the whole like PlayStation exclusive thing is sort of a weird. It's a weird thing. I think you've got a lot of people that are still very much caught up in that mentality of like, well, exclusives sell consoles, and I do think that's true to an extent, except when you look at the games that actually sell on these consoles, it's all third-party stuff. It's all stuff that's available. You know, Go look at that top 5, like the most engaged games on the platform, and the, like all of that stuff. It's GTA, it's fucking Call of Duty, it's Fortnite, it's Roblox, it's Minecraft. So the idea of like, we're going to put this game out and it's going to move consoles, that still exists. But to do it at scale, it really ultimately comes down to GTA. And so all that stuff just becomes like really lucrative marketing deals, right? Like Rockstar will probably do a deal with Sony. Maybe they won't have to, maybe Sony won't have to do a deal as well as much as they did for GTA 5. Just because Xbox is not in the same position anymore and the game's not launching on PC at the same time anyway. And so really, if it's just going to launch on PC and Xbox, or on PlayStation and Xbox rather, Sony doesn't have to like go like, oh man, we got to make sure because they did a hell of a deal, a big old co-marketing deal for GTA 5. And I remember seeing, I think it was John Drake who was part of doing that deal, was saying that like that what came out of that, and maybe it wasn't him, I'm trying to remember, I don't think I heard this from him, but I heard this separately, was that they did a study afterwards and talked to consumers about like what they knew about GTA when it was coming out and all this other stuff. When GTA 5 was coming out, and the bulk of players that they spoke with thought the game was only on PlayStation, because every ad ended with the little PlayStation stinger, and like they did the depths of that co-marketing deal, kind of put the PlayStation logo right there next to GTA and said, this is what you need to play this game. And that ended up being apparently very effective for them and a very big deal. And so, GTA 6, yeah, that's right. Yes, almost says GTA 6 now says captured on PS5 Pro. So presumably there's already some kind of deal in place. Otherwise they probably wouldn't specify unless they had a real good reason to. And that reason is money. So I bet that they've got some kind of deal in place. But I wonder, like if it needed to be as lucrative as it probably is, or could be, or whatever, just because Xbox does not necessarily pose the same level of threat. You could certainly want to do that deal to prevent Microsoft from doing the same deal and saying, oh, GTA 6 and Xbox are hand in hand. And who knows what that would even do, dude? Could you imagine like a gigantic push for GTA 6 on Xbox Series X? Like if that was the big marketing thing, like how weird would that seem after all this time of like the Xbox Series X kind of like fading away? Like I wonder if it would matter. I see, like a lot of like anecdotally, I'm still playing, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of Call of Duty at night. Most nights, not every night, but I am still kind of winding down with a little bit of that. And on PC, when you go into a lobby, it shows the icons of what people are connected to in the lobby. And despite that game being on Game Pass, I feel like there's been a huge shift. Around launch, I feel like I was seeing a lot of Xbox icons. And now, here we are mid-January, like it's so many PlayStation icons. It is way fewer. And so I wonder if the Game Pass crowd came in and went like, oh, cool, I can play this as part of my subscription, or maybe they canceled, and just kind of played a little bit of it casually and went like, all right, whatever, on to the next game. And it's the PlayStation people who spent $70 on that game that are like, no, I've spent $70 on this, so I'm going to keep playing it, and all of that. I wonder if there's like what the actual numbers are there. I mean, the engagement numbers that Circana puts out makes it look like Call of Duty is still at the top, near the top for both of those platforms. So it's not necessarily that no one is playing it on Xbox or anything like that. Though I will say, again, with the way that lobbies fill up or don't fill up or take longer to fill up and everything, like that this year's Call of Duty continues to seem like damaged goods. It seems like people are like just not the engagement, like in game, it does not feel like the engagement is there. And possibly that is a technical problem or something. Like this year's game, just the matchmaking is fucked because they did make some changes to matchmaking. But there is just something about the length of time it takes to get in games and the amount of time, the number of empty spots in a lobby when a game starts because it can't find enough players to fill it or whatever. Like whatever is happening, the game doesn't feel right. Like it feels like there are way fewer players playing it, and matches are harder to fill and all of that. Like it's a weird thing. It's hard to kind of put it into words, and you can't necessarily point the finger and go, that's definitely that. But like there's something going on there. It is not right. Call of Duty has gone off the rails in some weirdly specific way, in addition to the sales stories and all the other stuff that we've heard about. But there is something that you feel in game that's just like, no, there's something busted here. There's something wrong here. There's something about there's something about the player base here that is different and broken. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about some video games. We'll talk about some hardware. We'll talk about some video game hardware. All that and more. The year is 2026, and it's time to launch. That's right. It's time to finally launch your business. 2026 could be the year you rewrite your story, own your future, and make your entrepreneurial dreams come true. Starting a business? Great. You trying to sell some stuff? Great. Because Shopify is here to help you. Shopify can make everything you do easier when it comes to selling things online. Millions of entrepreneurs have already made this leap from household names to first-time business owners just getting started. And Shopify can hold your hand every step of the way when it comes to setting up your dream store. They give you all the tools you need. Hundreds of beautiful templates that you can customize to match your brand. You can set up quickly. They've got built-in marketing for creating email and social campaigns that'll reach customers wherever they're scrolling. And Shopify grows with you. It can handle more orders. It can expand to new markets. It can do it all from the same dashboard. So if you've got an idea in your head you can't shake, something that everyone's always telling you like, oh, this thing you make, you should be selling these. A store you've already designed in your head? With Shopify, 2026 is when you finally make it happen. So hey, in 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Jeff. That's shopify.com/Jeff. That's shopify.com/Jeff. Hear your first this new year with Shopify by your side. I got my hands on the Commodore 64 Ultimate. This is an FPGA-based Commodore 64. They sent one of these out, and I've been messing around with it for the last week or so. There's a video up on YouTube if you check it out. I ended up putting up a video of me messing around with it. It was hard to get it to capture. It was hard to get it into a live stream. It was hard to make that part of it happen. For whatever reason, hooked up through my normal capture gear that everything else runs through, the audio was not coming through at all. I don't know why. But there is a built-in streaming thing inside of this that will stream audio and video out to your network. And there's an OBS plugin that can pick up that feed. I had to install that, and then that didn't work I had a hell of a time getting that thing working, but eventually got it all to work. And that's very finicky. Like it worked. I had it working and I was about to start the live stream, and then I looked over and it had stopped working. And I was like, what? And I had to spend another half an hour getting that to work again. It's very finicky at this stage. But the device itself is a Commodore 64 in most of the ways that matter. With the additional benefit of being a kind of modern FPGA based device. It'll take a lot of the original Commodore peripheral. Here, let me unplug this thing. Like, it just looks like a Commodore 64. It types like a Commodore 64. Listen to these keys. Like, it has the same basic feel of a C64, the same size. This is not like here's a C64 mini, and it's got built-in games, and it's got this and that. Like, it's got real joystick ports on it for hooking up your original peripherals. It's got a cartridge port on it for plugging in, if you have cartridges. It has the ports on it it has the serial port. So if you still have a real floppy drive, or I guess a tape drive, you can hook up those real things to it. And that's kind of fucking neat. As someone who owns that stuff, but doesn't always, I don't know. Like, I want to hook it up and transfer my discs, honestly, because the other thing you can do is load tapes and discs and cartridges from a USB stick, or there's an open source tool that someone made that lets you load those things over your network, which is actually a handier way to do it, except for the part where it doesn't have support for zipped files, which actually breaks the whole thing. And makes it totally useless. but in theory, if your things are already unzipped, then that's pretty awesome. It's got a really clunky menu, and like getting into the menus and mounting a floppy disk, like doing all the stuff that you do with the unit itself, to like mount a cartridge or mount a cassette tape and load it or whatever. Like, a lot of that stuff is really funky. And the other part of it that I think is kind of a weird problem that I guess there is sort of a way around, is that it's all one unit. You plug the HDMI cable right into the back of this Commodore 64, and that's where the keyboard is. And some games use the keyboard. Castle Wolfenstein, for example, but also like Commando. In Commando, like the original Commodore 64, if you're unaware, used the same joysticks that an Atari 2600 used. So it's a joystick and a single button. And so if you wanted a second button as a developer, you had to go like, well, I guess you can just push the space bar. And so Commando, you throw grenades by hitting the space bar. In these modern times of large screen TVs and long cables and all of this other stuff, the Commodore is probably by the television, and you're, 6 feet away with your joystick in your hand playing a game. And so the space bar is all the way over there. And that's garbage. Now, I've read, so it has USB ports on it, which you can use to, plug in a USB stick with games on it or whatever you're doing. My understanding, and I have not tried this myself, but I was reading up on it, you cannot use USB controllers, but I am seeing some folks saying that USB keyboards work. So I wonder then if you could have a USB keyboard on your lap and you hit the space bar that way. That doesn't sound like a great option either. The other problem is that, like, again, by only using original controllers, there's stuff you want to do, like, like getting to the menu, opening up the menu and mounting a different disc and doing this, and, like, requires you to hit a switch that's on the side of the unit itself. And so you have to be near there to do it. And so it is inconvenient in a lot of ways with, just the kind of the way we use modern televisions and entertainment centers and all of this sort of stuff. If you're enough of an enthusiast that you're going to put it on a desk right in front of a TV or a monitor or whatever, then you're right there just like you used to be, 40 years ago. And it's so whatever, and so cool, like that just kind of works as it always has. I don't think I would ever set this up that way. I don't know. Like, I don't, like, it's... So I keep coming back to, where would this fit in my life? What I want to do is I want to go to my storage locker. I want to get all my Commodore 64 floppy disks out, along with my 1571, disk drive. And I want to dump all of those disks. All of the games that are on them, I think, have been dumped a million times over. and all of that. But those were my discs, and so I kind of want copies of those, or at least to see if there's anything weird on them. I don't know, like maybe there's Lode Runner levels that I made and saved, or just something. Man, I want to see it, and so I kind of want to do that. And then once those are dumped, that's cool, man. I can run them a number of different ways. There are a lot of different ways to play Commodore 64 games. And so, like, if you're not married to the form factor and you don't necessarily have an immediate need to use real peripherals, the use case for the C64 Ultimate starts to get a little thin. I've been in favor of the Mister platform for a very long time. It plays Commodore 64 games exceptionally well. It has a ton of options for configuring sound and like and for to the C64 Ultimate's credit, it also has a zillion options, and it has Wi-Fi support and like you can connect it to your network. And then you can telnet into BBSs with it with some of the provided terminal software. Like, it's cool. It's cool that, you know, that there is a dedicated FPGA-based Commodore 64 solution like the C64 Ultimate. The other thing is that this is not like when they announced this thing, it came in conjunction with like Commodore, the company is back. We've bought the rights to the name, and like a sketchy crew of people put the Commodore name back together, and they're making this thing. But what they're really doing is they have made like an updated version of a board that was called the Ultimate 64 that has existed for a long time. And someone's been making and selling those for a very long time that you could put into a real C64 case and convert it into an FPGA-based Commodore 64. With kind of modern inputs, outputs, and what have you. And so it's sort of a weird, like, oh, okay, Commodore's back. Like, no, their Commodore is just like a bigger operation for selling these FPGA boards that have existed for a long time. And that's kind of weird. Or it's I don't know, like it just feels like, oh, cool. This thing I've wanted to buy for like 5 years, or if not 10. I don't know how long he's been making them, but it's been a while. But I just never pulled the trigger on like, oh, now there's a company that has licensed those boards and is making them in a nice all-in-one unit that you can just buy for $350. Like, that's kind of cool. But also the Mister is so advanced and does so much more than just play Commodore 64 games that it is a better purchase for this sort of thing. And, you know, there's probably some compatibility to like I think the ultimate deciding factor in some of this, if you're a true sicko, is you probably want to know, like, are there things that run on the Ultimate that don't run on a Mister? Are there compatibility differences, and so on and so forth? And I don't have the answers to those questions, but the C64 core for the Mister is very advanced. I've found it to be very stable and very compatible with all the things you expect it to be compatible with. And now you can get a Mister compatible device for a lot less money than you could a few years ago. There are people out there making kind of new versions of the Mister hardware. There's like the Superstation 1 or the Mister Pi, which is a terrible name. And you can get one of those for like a couple $100. And that will play Commodore 64 games and an Apple II and an N64 and a PlayStation and a Saturn and all these arcade games and all of it, versus the $350 for a C64 Ultimate that is a really damn cool Commodore 64. Again, if you have specific nostalgia needs or specific peripheral needs, for hooking real hardware up to a thing, the C64 Ultimate is, you know, a very effective way to do that, and obviously it looks and feels like the real thing. And so if that's something that you truck with, if that's something that you need in your life, I think that thing's damn good at it. But as someone who I have shed the form factor curse in most things these days, like years of running emulators, decades, literal decades, I have been emulating video games on a PC for 30 years. As I look at it and see that it is 2026, I certainly remember playing Game Boy games on a PC in like 96. If not 95. But yeah, as someone who has been kind of into that for a very long time, like the idea of, oh, it's got to look and feel like the hardware has to be real. Like I'm not, that's not me, and it hasn't been for a very long time. So the value of a thing that looks and feels, and on top of that, I owned a Commodore 128 anyway, so my nostalgia is wrapped up in a totally different form factor than the C64, because I had a 128 in the first place. So like so that aspect of it just doesn't really hold any real sway with me personally. But if you do, this thing is pretty fucking cool. But at its price point, and it's it being relatively limited compared to the Mister and some of the other things you could be playing C64 games on these days, it's kind of a niche item. It's a real specific crowd that have that specific sickness that need it a very specific way, and more power to them. It's cool that this exists. It's cool that this exists, but I don't know that I don't know that I see myself leaving it hooked up for a specifically lengthy period of time. Like I said, I want to find my floppy disks and dump them all, and that's and even if I wanted to do that, you can get cables and solutions to do that on a PC. I think there's even a pathway to hooking real peripherals up to a Mister. I'm not positive if that is stable or whatever, but I do think there is a way to do that as well. I know there are ways to do cassette tapes on a Mister for a number of the different cores there, but it's cool. It's $350. They have other more expensive versions that look different if you want one that's clear or gold, that has like LED lights inside of it that react to the audio that's being played, which is that sounds neat. That's not that, I feel like that is kind of ruining the nostalgia angle on it. But whatever, sure. Speaking of fake nostalgia, I've been playing a game called Vital Shell that's on Steam. It's a fake PlayStation game. It is an auto shooting survival game that is also like, it looks like a PlayStation 1 mech game. With all of the, like, it has just the font work and the model stylings of a like Japan only, like it has a real like Net Yorose vibe to it. Like it's got a real like hobbyist PlayStation game kind of look to it that I think works really well. It's not the greatest, like as far as like the gameplay itself and the genre, which is obviously incredibly crowded. It is not the best auto shooting survival game out there. You can manually fire if you like. You can turn on manual firing and just make it into a dual joystick shooter if you so desire. But yeah, so like the gameplay of it, the upgrades are neat, and the different mech suits and stuff are like, there's some cool options at your disposal. But like at the end of the day, the vibe, the graphical stylings, as well as the soundtrack, which I think is pretty good. Like that's the stuff that kind of keeps you coming back. And yeah, I don't know. That's on Steam. You should at least look at it. It's got a neat look to it. I've also been playing is maybe a generous term here. I have been leaving running in the background something called Gambler's Table, which just came out. We need to, in this era of just like coming up with, is this coinslop? Can we apply a shitty, can we be shitty about this for a minute? Can I be an asshole about this for a sec? It's a coin flipping game. It is another game about flipping coins. It is, now that there's 3 of them, it's officially a trend. And it is an idle game, and so it is a game in which the coins are flipped, and there are different upgrades and ways for you to flip the coins. You can flip them manually by clicking on them, or you can buy helpers who will flip the coins for you, and you eventually upgrade to better coins that earn you more money, and so on down the line. This is not an endless idle game. This is not a game you're going to play for months and months and months. This is a game that you'll play for, well, I don't know. I think I left it running overnight once. I have one Steam achievement left to get in it, and then I realized that I bought an upgrade that will make getting that achievement way harder. And so I think I'm just going to uninstall it now. So it's a short time sort of idle game. It's the sort of thing you play for a while, you see all the upgrades and go, okay, all right. And kind of move on from. It's using the same font as, like, it's got a very Balatro-like font, which I think should be against the law at this point. There ought to be a law. But it is not like you're not like gambling. You're not putting anything on the line. It's an idle game in which when coins land on heads, you get more money. And when coins land on tails, you get a currency you can use to buy hats for your helpers. And it's nice for what it is. It is, again, I think when I want games like this, I don't want ones that I've kind of wrung everything out of them in a couple of days. The stuff that lasts a lot longer, and maybe over time they will build. That's how a lot of these games develop. Like, these idle games start out really small, and then the developers see that they're popular and go, "Oh shit." And they start bolting on systems and upgrades, and like, you prestige into this, and then you can do this, and like Unnamed Space Idol has bolted on 9 different systems. Revolution Idol has zodiac signs and all of this other fucking insane bullshit. And Unnamed Space Idol is about to add apparently like a whole nother style of upgrade system, and like once you get past stage 150 or something, it's going to change into something else completely. They're teasing that. So like that's the idle game. That's the thing that I'm kind of more interested in, is when these games get like somewhat successful or sustainable, and then the developers put insane amounts of work into like extending them into like these endless nightmares of like, well, now it's going to do this. And like, sometimes the systems are really bad. Like the stuff they've bolted on the Revolution Idol, which is a game about watching circles fill up. It's trippy, bro. You get money every time the circles fill. And eventually the circles fill so fast that you don't get to watch that anymore. But like the stuff they added late game in Revolution Idol is like, you get these animals, and the animals have bonuses, or now there's these challenges on top of the challenges, and now we've got these zodiac signs, and like, I think all of those systems are kind of bad. And so it's interesting to see a game where it's like, oh, hey, for the first 200 hours, this is a neat little idle game. And then it pivots into this other thing, and you're like, I hate this now. It's just a strange pathway for idle games to have taken, I guess. But Gambler's Table is out. People apparently wishlisted the heck out of it. Based off a demo. There is a demo available, and but I guess like my thing here with this game is that there's just not enough to it. You buy the upgrades, you go. There isn't really a prestige currency for when you reset, and so you're not really like the game. You're not growing in power exponentially as you reset and sacrifice and prestige, or whatever you want to call it. You're just kind of doing it again, and the upgrades that are available to you are nice, but not that nice. I don't know. Like, it's okay. It's okay. But if you were looking for something, if you're looking for an idle game to play for a couple of days or something like that, that's what that is. I don't necessarily dislike it. It's just it's a little underwhelming compared to some of the other stuff that's out there these days. I know it's a ridiculous thing to have any level of depth of opinion about when it comes to comparing one of these games to another, but here we are. Of course, Anthem shut down. We talked about this last week. I don't know that there's much more to say other than I fired up the game yesterday to see what it was going to do, and it just doesn't connect to the server. Surprise. There's like a 4-hour video out there from Mark Dara, who worked on Anthem, and it's I have not watched the video because it is just too long. But apparently he gets into a lot of really specific stuff around like management and how the team was managed. Like it's a 4-hour video about Anthem, but it is also apparently much more about like, here's what it's like making a game at a big studio, and here's what it was like at BioWare at this specific moment in time, kind of, you know, post the Mass Effect trilogy, and like it's a really it's the what I have seen of it seems really interesting. One of these days I'm going to sit down and go, okay, I'm going to put this on a monitor somewhere over here and listen to him talk about Anthem for 4 hours, because that it just seems like it's, you know, it could be a very interesting story. You know, no big fanfare for Anthem being shut down, obviously. Like, if, you know, there's no reason for that. Like, I think people were like, it's unclear. Like, some of the stories that people were writing about, you know, the impending closure of the Anthem servers, like it's unclear if there's going to be any kind of in-game event to signal the shutdown of the servers. Like, come on, dude. Like, EA has been sweeping Anthem under the rug since the week it was released. Do you honestly think that there are any developers left that have the time, or maybe even the inclination, to want to build some kind of custom shutdown server event in a game that it would probably take a whole lot of work to do anything custom like that? They did not do a damn thing with Anthem. They didn't make the cosmetics free at any point. There was no like, hey, as a result of us doing this, we're going to let you buy all the stuff. Like, it was just like, yeah, I don't know, Anthem's going to shut down one of these days in 6 months. And then 6 months passed and they shut it down, and that's it. So, I continue to maintain, and, you know, I played some of it last week, and that video is also up on YouTube if you want to see that. I maintain that Anthem was just not a good game. You know, the reasons for that, I'm sure, are numerous, right? There are aspects of Anthem that you look at and go, hey, there's actual promise here. And that's kind of the real bummer about Anthem, is that you can see a better game hiding somewhere in there. But there's no reason to dig it out because the content doesn't support it. But ultimately, like, that was a game, you know, playing it the week before it came out, like playing it for review, it was clear, like, this game does not have what it takes. And they tried to, there was a brief period of time where they were scrambling to put out some new content, and, you know, like, maybe they thought they could turn it around or whatever, but like people were frustrated with that game during the like 3-day early access period. I remember people being like completely pissed. And I think some of that was technical. I want to say it was like crashing or servers weren't connecting or whatever it was. So some of that was the like, hey, I paid extra to play your game and I can't. What the fuck? But it did end up, you know, that they kind of angered the people who could have been their best fans right out of the gate, which is never a good thing for a game like that. You know, there's a world in which you could make a game with some of those mechanics that actually that is actually like good and fun, but the content that needs to surround those mechanics needs to be drastically different. We don't need to necessarily break down Anthem all over again. It's something that I think has been done to death. I'm a little bummed out about it, I guess I would say, because it not because like I can't believe they shut it down. Like, I can't believe they waited so long to shut it down. I remember saying not that long after the game's release that, like, you know, I think it was around the time that they said they weren't going to do the Anthem 2.0 stuff, that they were like, oh, we're going to revitalize this game. And then they were like, oh, wait, no, EA has decided that we're not doing it, which I think I said at the time, like, that's the right move because nothing they could do would save this game. And you know, all they were waiting for was enough time needs to pass for them to feel okay about announcing the server shutdown. Like, they already know what they're going to do. It's just a matter of when are they going to do it, because if they do it too soon, then you've got people who will want a class action lawsuit, or they'll feel like, oh, I got taken for a ride. Like, you need to give those players some quiet time with the game, and so that they can feel like they got their time out of it or whatever. Meanwhile, nothing is being added to the game. Nothing is being, you know, enhanced in the game. Like, nothing is being worked on. It's just like, it's okay, this is going to sit there. We're not going to make any more changes. There's no more stuff coming, but, you know, go ahead and play it for the foreseeable future. And then they just kind of need to wait a certain amount of time before they can go, okay, if we announce this now, no one's going to be like extra mad about it. Like, they've gotten their anger out already. And we can just say, hey, it's going to shut down in 6 months, and everyone will shrug and go, yeah, yep, of course it is. So that's what they did. You know, the double whammy of, I would say that Mass Effect probably did more damage to the BioWare reputation than Anthem, but the way they talked about Anthem, the way they talked up Anthem like it was this, when you heard about, like, it's codenamed Dylan because of Bob Dylan, which I don't have any real specific reverence for Bob Dylan, I suppose, but, you know, like, the way that they were trying to, like, position the game and internally thinking of the game, like, you just hear that and you're like, what? Come on. But that thing and Andromeda being the kind of whatever. I would say the release of Mass Effect 3 is where people said that they were, like, getting really fed up with BioWare, right? Like, you know, I think that the weird outrage around the Mass Effect 3 ending was severely misguided. And I think rewarding those fucking idiots by changing the ending is, like, one of the dumbest, like, flinches that a company has done in a long time. And you could probably draw some kind of direct through line from, like, BioWare caving and changing the Mass Effect 3 ending to, like, all of the weird fucking anger that people have. Like, now people think they have a certain amount of power over a game's story or a game's this or a game's that. And it's just like, nah, that's probably not a good thing. That's some real Snyderverse fucking bullshit there. Yeah, it's definitely got the same vibes as the fucking Zack Snyder weirdos. Jesus Christ. The things they did to the Mass Effect 3 ending didn't necessarily fix it. And as I have been saying for all of these years, the problems with Mass Effect 3 were numerous and had very little to do with the ending. Because by the time you got to the ending of Mass Effect 3, they had already kind of farted away their legacy through all of the writing and the things they do throughout Mass Effect 3. By the time I got to Mass Effect 3, I was already, like, shrugging. Like, it didn't matter what the ending was. Like, I was already so disenfranchised. I was already so fucking bummed out by everything that happens in Mass Effect 3 and how tidy everything is. And we're just, you know, how mechanical all of the, like, tying up all of the loose ends felt and like all of that stuff. It was just depressing. And so by the time you get to the end of Mass Effect 3, I was just like, fucking whatever, dude. None of this matters. None of this matters. So yeah, I don't know. Like, you know, Andromeda, I think, had the chips stacked against it for a handful of reasons, and then also it launched terribly, and, you know, the writing was kind of a mess in some ways there too, and, you know, like, it's just like the positive sides of Andromeda did not shine through with some of the other stuff that had been built up around it. And so, you know, you kind of have, you know, a BioWare that is in not necessarily decline, but is desperately trying to hold on to all of the goodwill that they built up through Mass Effect and Dragon Age. And, you know, and when did Inquisition come? I'm trying to think, like, what's the order of operations for, so, like, Inquisition's like 2014, right? So that's like, that's after Mass Effect 3, or is that? Yeah, so Mass Effect 3 is 2012. So Inquisition, I think, Inquisition is kind of like the last great BioWare game. And some people disagree with that, but I think that Inquisition, like, they fucking pulled it off, man. Like that is a damn good game. If you want the specific things that Dragon Age 1 does and you're still mad about Dragon Age 2, then yeah, nothing's going to help you in that regard. But like, as far as like doing the BioWare thing, Inquisition in a lot of ways is like the last one of those. Veilguard's not a bad game for sure, but Veilguard is its own kind of like cursed lineage and weird development and all of the other shit there. But like Inquisition is a really good game. And so yeah, I guess like maybe in that way that is kind of the last one. Maybe they got one out after Mass Effect 3. But yeah, not that, you know, I mean, Inquisition is not the perfect game or whatever, but as someone who has played through it, let's call it 1.5 times, and as someone who, you know, my wife played through it probably 2 or 3 times, and so I got to see a lot of Inquisition. That was a pretty fucking good game. It was a pretty fucking good game. I would not put it over Mass Effect 2. How about that? But it is in a lot of ways kind of the last great BioWare game, unless they put out this Mass Effect game and people actually care about it. Like anything's possible, I suppose, but it's just it's hard to envision a world where like they make good on Mass Effect after everything that's been done there, all the damage that's been done there. Let's take one more break. We'll get into the news. This Valentine's Day, do something fun. You know what's more fun than flowers that die in like 3 days? Matching underwear. Yeah, that's right. MeUndies has cracked the code on Valentine's Day gifts with their matching underwear for couples. It's cute, it's intimate, and you'll wear them more than once. MeUndies makes matching underwear specifically for couples. The same adorable prints, different cuts for each of you, obviously. I mean, duh. All made from their signature ultra-modal fabric that feels impossibly soft. Unlike the other brands that are just like slapping hearts on generic underwear, MeUndies designs coordinating prints from the ground up. Their Valentine's collection has prints made for two. It's the kind of gift that makes you smile every time you put them on. They've sold over 30 million pairs and have 90,000 5-star reviews. People love these because they actually fit well and feel amazing. And they got a first pair promise. It's 45 days, risk-free. If your first pair doesn't work out, they will make it right. No hassle. Every style comes in coordinating prints, so you and your partner can match. Boxer briefs, trunks, briefs for him, bikinis, thongs, boy shorts, cheeky styles for her. Same print, different fits. Valentine's Day is February 14th, in case you forgot. That's like, it's coming up. It's coming up. So if you want these delivered in time, order soon. This is the gift that keeps giving long after the holiday is over. It's MeUndies. These are fantastically comfortable. These underwear are mind-blowing. Again, I've been starting the process of going through my underwear drawer, finding a lot of old underwear that needs to be it should be burned. Honestly, it doesn't. The garbage, the people won't take it away. It needs to be destroyed. I don't know if it can. I don't know if the fires will truly cleanse it, but I'm going to have to try so that I can replace all of it with MeUndies. The stuff is so smooth and soft and supporting. And all of their different cuts and stuff. They've got a bunch of nice styles that feel great on your freaking body. You know what I'm saying? Make this Valentine's Day one to remember with matching underwear from MeUndies. To get exclusive deals up to 50% off, go to MeUndies.com/Jeff and enter the promo code Jeff. That's MeUndies.com/Jeff. Promo code Jeff for up to 50% off. In the news, could Call of Duty be imminent on the Switch 2? That's what some people are saying. Over at VideoGamesChronicle.com, they have found a data miner who has pulled apart one of the more recent updates to Black Ops 7 and found room for Nintendo accounts in the kind of table of platforms, the platform family. They're digging through some text here. and finding references to Nintendo inside of the accounts. It looks like the supported accounts list, which makes sense. Platform family: Steam, Battle.net, Microsoft. They have 2 for Sony, 1 for Nintendo, another one for Microsoft, and one for Ubisoft Connect. Ubi would be in there because Ubi is allowed to stream. Ubi's Uplay service, like streaming service or whatever, has some Activision games on it in some territories. That was part of the things that Microsoft negotiated when they were buying Activision, and they had to sell some rights off to some folks that way. So that's why Ubi would be in there. I know that seems like it would be real weird. But yeah, I don't know. People are taking this to mean that, you know, hey, maybe Call of Duty is coming to Switch 2. Maybe this is something they could announce imminently. I think that's kind of interesting. Last time we talked about Call of Duty on Switch 2, it was like, okay, like there's just a number of problems that probably need to be solved around integrating with Nintendo accounts, which seems to be what, you know, this is at least inferring. You know, you could infer from this that they have at least started on that, if not figured it out completely. But there's a lot of like, hey man, that's a large game. How do you get a game that large to install? What's the largest Switch game? I wonder. I don't know that information. But like on a system with limited onboard storage space and then the kind of SD card expansion stuff, like you sort of end up, it ends up taking up a lot of space. Let's see. Fire Emblem is 17 gigs. I guess EA Sports FC 24 was 31. Okay, a site called Game Rant has apparently come up with a list. They did this in about a year ago, so maybe it's a little out of date here, but Apex Legends is 30 gigs. The Witcher 3 is 40. Mortal Kombat 1 is 47 gigs. And NBA 2K24 Kobe Bryant Edition is 60 gigs. So even 60 gigs is minuscule compared to a full Call of Duty install at this point. Split Fiction on Switch 2 is apparently 73 gigs, Bryn says. That's ridiculous. Fortnite's like 50. Yeah, okay. So that's, you know, the 50 to 70 gig range is like, I don't know, when we think about it, and I'm talking about Switch 1 as well as Switch 2 here, so we don't have to really limit this to the dumb storage requirements of the Switch 2 with its kind of specific, what is it, SDXC or whatever the standard is that you need to use there for the faster storage requirements on a Switch 2. But like, you know, you could probably do a lot to shrink the call. You could even with the work they have already done to try to shrink the install size of Call of Duty. My PC install, which is just the current game, meaning it is the campaign, it is competitive multiplayer, it is zombies mode, it is Warzone. So that's the current year of Call of Duty. That install size on PC is 166 gigabytes. That's big. That's a lot bigger than the biggest Switch game. And if you've got a 256 gig SD card in your thing, that would take up most of it. And so I wonder, you know, like, okay, so let's assume they'll knock it down. They'll do things like, okay, we're only going to install, and maybe they're already doing this on PC, but like there's things like only install the language that you're using. So only install English language, only install whatever language you're using. You could obviously chop it up and not install Warzone or not install zombies as a user if you wanted to kind of manually cut down on the size, but let's assume you're a player who bought the game and wants to play every facet of it. that's still probably pretty big. Maybe they knock down the textures a little bit. We don't know what that game would perform like on a Switch 2 and what the limitations for resolution might be. Of like, is that going to run at 4K on a TV? Is it going to be like limited at 1080 if you want 60 frames a second, or can you get 1080 120 and then 4K 60 or whatever? Like, are you doing things, like size wise to your textures and whatever else? Are you going to have, like, is it going to look grungy as a result? Like, there's a lot of things that might have to happen there. All this DLSS business. But presumably that's stuff that could knock down the size of it a little bit. You could, I don't know, knock down some of the fidelity of the audio and not store it as, there's stuff you could probably do there, I guess. But like, the game already exists on a PlayStation 4. And so, a Switch 2 from a power perspective should be able to do it just fine somewhere within that range of compromises that they make for continuing to run the game on a PS4. It's just, but ultimately, like, some of it does come down to the just storage size. Are you going to dump that on players and go, here you go? Yeah, I don't know. You should buy a bigger SD card. Also, you have to buy the expensive SD cards because it's a Switch 2. I don't think there's a situation where they only put out part of the game, unless they're just going to put out Warzone, which that seems weird to me. What we're seeing in terms of it appearing in this list of accounts and all this other stuff implies that there is an online thing. So it's obviously not a world where they are going to just release the campaign, though also the campaign is online. So, it's any mode you would need to do the Activision account linking and all of the other stuff. It appearing like this does make you think that, yes, they are moving forward with crossplay, because otherwise these files would probably not appear in the other versions that are out there today if Nintendo's stuff was going to be siloed off. So that seems good. I don't know. Also, I wonder how well it does. It probably does fine. Unless it's like a really, really fucked up, terrible port of the game, which I can't imagine why it would be. There's reason to assume that it, will probably run at a certain standard. Yeah, and maybe it'll have mouse support on Switch 2. That'd be kind of interesting. Though with the way the PC version handles mouse and controller stuff, they probably won't let you switch on the fly, because you can't switch inputs on the fly on PC. Like, you pick whether you want to play with a controller or with a mouse, and if you bump the mouse while you're playing with a controller, it has a little thing pop out that says, hey, no, you need to switch inputs if you want to do that, and you can't do that when you're already in a match, because they don't want players to say they're on a controller and then swap to a mouse and snipe people better or whatever, or worse, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, they do have restrictions in place around that. But I wonder if they would do something interesting with the controls on that. Cyberpunk is a really, Cyberpunk is a really fascinating Switch 2 game just because of the control stuff. Like, it's interesting that it runs it all on a Switch 2, but the actual cool thing there is they really sat down and thought about the controls and really came up with some neat ideas about how to control that game on a Switch 2. And I think there's some stuff you could do with a first-person shooter, obviously, that could be kind of neat for a variety of players who like playing these games different ways. So, I am very interested to see what they end up doing with this. And then Video Games Chronicle goes on to speculate about maybe where this could be announced, because the person who is data mining this and leaking it is, they're kind of saying like, oh, maybe this announcement is imminent, because if it's in the game right now, or if it's making its way into builds of the game that are, production brand, whatever, then maybe this stuff is starting to worm its way out sooner rather than later. But where would that get announced? You know, the Microsoft Developer Direct is coming up, but they have not really been too heavy on talking about non-Xbox platforms inside of those events. I think that will change. I suspect that will change as they become a little more agnostic about their platform situation. But that might be something that they would want Nintendo to announce. That's typically how they've done it when Microsoft has had stuff. I feel like they've usually, you know, so, you know, people keep saying, oh, there's got to be a Nintendo Direct soon. Like the portfolio has so many holes in it. They got to get out there and say some stuff about some of their upcoming games, and maybe they could throw it in there. But I figure it would end up being inside of a Nintendo event and not necessarily something that Microsoft would cram into their developer. Some people are saying like, oh, it'll be part of the Developer Direct. I guess that's possible. Like I said, you know, so Forza is selling really well on PlayStation, turns out. And I imagine that every story that you read like that, every time you hear about, hey, this Microsoft game sold really well on PlayStation, it's gonna chip away at whatever the last bastions of like, this is a purely Xbox focused thing. It's gonna change the definition of that, and that's gonna happen sooner or later, right? But like generally, when it's come to Developer Directs and some of their own announcements, they've stayed focused on Game Pass. They're like, these games are coming to Game Pass. These games are Xbox Play Anywhere. And they've, you know, anything about other platforms has been like relegated to like either a very quick announcement or it's something that shows up on someone else's stage or gets its own dedicated announcement or not even an announcement. Like Avowed is coming to PlayStation 5. That got announced. It's just like, hey, by the way, we're doing this anniversary edition and it's going to come to PS5 at that time, which is good. You should play Avowed. It's good. It's a good game. Call of Duty is Call of Duty. And so I think there's plenty of reason for that to be announced in some form of presentation. It'll be interesting to see whose stage that ends up being on, because like I said, I do think that we eventually get to a point where what Xbox means is so diluted and whatever else that they're happy and fine with devoting their own stage time to talking about, hey, by the way, Forza Horizon 6 is coming to PlayStation. We'll see. We'll find out because Forza is one of the games that they will be talking about next week. And like I said, it sounds like the sales of Forza Horizon 5 have been quite good on PlayStation. So this probably gives them a reason to say, hey, by the way, PlayStation players, all of this is coming to you as well. And to not completely ignore that the way that they sometimes have. Speaking of the Xbox Developer Direct, and this is I don't know, this scans as something that would probably be true. I don't know. The 22nd, next Thursday, Microsoft is going to be holding a Developer Direct. They have announced 3 games that they will be focusing on. It is Forza Horizon 6, it is Fable, and it is Beast of Reincarnation, which, as Video Games Chronicle notes, is the new game from Game Freak, the Pokemon people. Apparently there is a secret 4th game. This is coming from leakers on the internet. But as I guess VGC has corroborated that, and they say, let's see. VGC can corroborate this and understands that the 4th game is a smaller scale original game from one of Xbox Game Studios' first-party developers. So something else coming from internal, like as people were like, oh, the secret 4th game, it's going to be a big third-party thing, and like, oh, maybe that's Call of Duty. Maybe Call of Duty is going to be here, even though that's not a third-party thing. But yeah, it kind of the rumor mill has been chugging on this one for a little bit. But smaller scale original game from one of their internal studios. So sounds about right, I guess. I don't know. And maybe that'll be some kind of shadow drop. I wish we could come up with a term other than shadow drop. Personally, it's just so, I don't know. It's one of those terms that like it's fine as a behind the scenes term, but as it's worked its way out into everyone talking about it like it's a real thing, it's like, come on. Yeah, yes. Also, yes, when corporations use the term drop, when anyone uses the term drop, I think the term drop has been completely ruined, actually. You drop an album, but even that, I think, now sounds a little corny. Because it's been co-opted in so many different shitty ways. It's, yeah, I don't know. Nintendo's president, Shintaro Furukawa, gave an interview with the Kyoto Shimbun, and that has been read and translated. Not a ton of revelatory stuff here, but, you know, as we kind of think about the ongoing RAM, as the RAM price problem, as the SSD problem, like all of the pricing on these peripherals, all these PC parts starts spiraling out of control. We of course think about like, how is this going to impact the next generation of consoles, but also the current generation of consoles. And so Furukawa was asked about this by the paper, and VGC has translated it. Hardware profitability depends on factors like component procurement conditions, cost reductions through mass production, and the impact of exchange rates and tariffs. It's difficult to generalize. Fundamentally, we aim to address this by advancing component procurement over the medium to long term. And basically says, like, you know, hey, if the price problem continues, yeah, it might eventually be a problem. Is speaking very carefully, right? The way a public company president does, where he's not going to say, yeah, if the prices on this stay high, it's going to, yeah, I mean, yeah. He has to kind of say, we're monitoring the situation. No decisions have been made. Because he can't come out there and say, oh yeah, we're obviously going to raise the price on this. I mean, duh. I mean, obviously, if the RAM we use to make our thing has doubled in price, even for us, and is harder for even us to get, then yeah, we're gonna have to do something about that. It's not like we can just absorb like the increase in all of these cost of goods and just deal with it, you know. But you know, he also cannot come out and say that, because then the headlines read switch price, you know, like it ends up being a negative thing for them. So also with regards to tariffs, he says, while it's difficult to accurately gauge the future impact, our basic policy is to recognize tariffs as a cost and pass them on to prices as much as possible, not just in the US. On the other hand, this is a crucial period for our game business as we promote the adoption of new hardware and maintain the momentum of our platforms. We are working on this while carefully considering the situation. So, you know, they are carefully considering the situation. Which is to say, they're looking at it and going like, oh, shit. If this stays like this, we're going to have to do something, huh? And they're like, yep, yeah. Yeah, we probably are, yeah. Do you think that the RAM shortage is being caused by RAM that doesn't even exist yet, and it has to be manufactured, and you've got these AI data center fuckos coming in and trying to buy up all the RAM for their data centers that may never get built? Do you think that the AI thing chugs on long enough for that RAM to get built and purchased? Or will all of the fake money that's being used to buy that RAM, like, will the bubble pop before then? And will suddenly RAM be like, oh, we thought we were going to get all this money for all this RAM, and now we're not. Now what? Or will they go ahead and build all the data centers and then realize that there's not enough demand to power, like to run them? Like at what stage in this process does the bottom drop out, you know? Because things, if it drops out early enough, RAM prices are not going to immediately like cut in half if that happened, but it would at least free up availability for said RAM earlier than people think it's going to be there, which would have an impact. But if this thing chugs along longer and longer, then there's increased likelihood that if not getting built, they will at least like fill a warehouse full of RAM to go next to all the GPUs they bought, in quotes, to just kind of sit there and rot. And at that point, who cares if the data centers get built or not? Like that's the RAM is getting sold at that point, and so whatever. But like, yeah, I don't know. I wonder if there's a point where if the AI stuff like crashed and burned early enough, if there is like a way out of this kind of tailspin that some of this other stuff seems to be in. Obviously, the when AI does fucking implode, it's going to be bad across the board for all industries, for the world economy, all of that sort of stuff. I'm wondering about this one kind of narrow thing, like what happens to RAM when that happens. If it crashes and burns before the RAM is technically sold, like these companies that are supplying the RAM are probably going to be hurting really badly for that, because all this RAM they had supposedly sold, not that they're going and making way more of it, does that end up fucking them over in a very nasty way? Or will they be able to just find customers for that RAM immediately because they've been like, oh, okay, yeah, we've been kind of holding out on everyone, and so I guess here's more RAM for you to make Switch 2s with, and maybe we'll cut the price a little bit, but maybe not, or whatever. Or yeah, I'm not saying the physical items, right? Like once the RAM is sold and built, it's configured, it's data center, it's off somewhere to do some other thing. But anyway. If it happens early enough, we'll see what happens. A couple of things in the world of The Division, which I am surprised. I had kind of forgotten. I had forgotten that they said, hey, we're going to make The Division 3, you know? Like The Division 2 has been chugging along for so long, and obviously Ubisoft has been a company in some turmoil. But yes, they did in fact announce The Division 3 back in 2023, apparently. Again, according to your home for the news, videogameschronicle.com. Julian Garrity, who was there for the Division 1 and then now is back for Division 3, just kind of said, hey, it's in production, it's shaping up to be a monster. We're working extremely hard on something that I think will have as big an impact as the Division 1 was, which I think is an interesting statement to make. But yeah, there was also a poster apparently at a Ubisoft event in Japan that I guess was probably mostly focused on Rainbow Six, but it says it's like the Division 1 Definitive Edition, which I don't know if that's, are they going to re-release the Division 1 in the ramp up to Division 3 or what? I don't know what the fuck that's about, but yeah, also there has been some cuts at Ubisoft, as there often is. It sounds like some people at Massive, the developers of The Division, have maybe seen some cuts, but that's also, they had grown in size like they did at Star Wars Outlaws, and so there's, it's entirely possible that was not necessarily people that are working on the Division 3, and I don't know. Interesting nonetheless. I would be very interested in the Division 3. Even as they continue to do updates to the Division 2, every time I reinstall Division 2, I go like, yeah, this game still kind of got it. Like the updates are not necessarily like incredible or whatever, but like, you know, because I'm not playing the game nonstop, but like I would be interested in playing a Division 3. I don't know what you do with the setting. I don't know where you go or what you do story wise or what have you, but I do think I would play the shit out of a Division 3 right about now. As someone who did my biannual run of Destiny 2, wherein I ran the first mission of the new campaign that they put into Destiny 2 and got to a point on it where mechanically I wasn't really sure what the fuck I needed to do anymore, and ended up bailing before finishing the very first mission. The classic Destiny 2 experience. I do like that they made a fake Star Wars inside of Destiny 2. That's a really weird thing. Like you load it up and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, okay. It's like your Ghost has plans for a battle station thing kind of on it, like it was the Death Star and like it was R2. Okay, yeah. I see. Okay, I see the fake Star Wars thing you're making. It's weird. It's weird that they made a fake Star Wars inside of Destiny 2. I don't Also, I didn't play long enough that when I came back to it, like there was a big announcement up front that said, hey, by the way, all gear drops at power level 300 now. Like, oh, okay. And I looked and saw, because they squashed the power levels at one point for the last time I played. And so all of my gear was like level 15. And then just garbage helmets started dropping that were like level 300. And I was like, okay. And I equipped them and it didn't feel any different whatsoever. And I was like, oh, right, yeah. The Destiny 2 problem. Anyway, all that said, I would be super down to play the Division 3 when and if that comes along. There's still that mobile game. I have a t-shirt for that mobile game. It's not Heartland. Heartland was the game they killed. It's Resurgence. The Division Resurgence. No? Yes, Resurgence. But it was, I don't know, that game had like it seems like it was coming up on a release date there for a little bit, and then yeah, okay. So they have like they've been running test phases. I played the Division Resurgence at like Summer Games Fest like 2 years ago. And got a t-shirt that says I found it the other day. I was like, oh right. This game, did this ever come out? Because like how the fuck would I know? The mobile game came out. But apparently they had a testing phase that ended just in December, just a month ago here. They have a post here on social media. Earlier this week, we closed access to the Division Resurgence Regional Beta. It was wonderful to see over 100,000 loyal agents plunge back into the cold winter streets of New York and experience the Division on their mobile devices. We're glad to report that this test helped us to confirm we are on track with our current goals. While we still cannot confirm the exact date the game will be available, we can say that our calendar for early 2026 is shaping up to be full of exciting moments for the Division Resurgence and for the Division as a franchise. Until then, we wish you all a fantastic time during these winter festivities. So that seems to indicate that they may actually open up the Division Resurgence to more players sometime this quarter, and also that they may have further announcements along the lines of the Division to coincide with some of that stuff. So maybe 2026 will be the Division's year. The Division always felt like, I don't know, like a little bit of an underdog. Like it just, you know, it never had the, like Destiny had a time there where it felt like it was being played by a lot of people, and a lot of people were talking about it like on podcasts and things like Destiny had supporters out there in the world. The Division never really felt like it had anything like that, other than Matthew Rory. God bless him. The Division lover himself. Clance fan number one. Yes, and Ice-T. Matt, Rory, and Ice-T. A likely duo, I would say. And I've always liked the Division, but I never, I played a lot of the Division 1. I played less of the Division 2. And as much as I do appreciate what they did with the Division 2, it just, I don't know, man. I just, other games came out. That is the answer to that question every single time. It's like, yeah, man, other games came out. I was playing the Division 2 and digging it, and then other games came out, and I never thought about it ever again. And then 8 years later, they put out new stuff, and I was like, what? All right, I guess I'll reinstall the Division 2. And there you go. But I would be super interested in seeing more of the Division. That mobile game, maybe not so much. Like that mobile game seemed like totally fine when I played it, and who knows if it's still that all these years later. But like playing that game, it felt like here's a kind of contained, like if you want to do the missions of the Division on your phone, they've recreated that experience and I think come up with some new missions and designs and stuff. But it felt very much like the more directed style, and maybe that's just what they were showing. Like I don't know if it has an open world or not. Is my point here. I don't know if it's really just focused on like go here and do this and run through this sewer and shoot these guys, these flamethrower dudes, and then do it again, or if it has an open world that connects it or not. I'm not 100% clear on that aspect of it. Windows Central put out a report of kind of like, hey, what's going on this year, and there's a little bit in there about machine games, which is, it's just kind of one sentence in this thing, but it's kind of an interesting thing, and like probably the right time for it, just from the world. Here's the quote from Windows Central. Machine Games is also thought to be working on a Rainbow Six Siege-like multiplayer title, although I've heard that Wolfenstein 3 is also on the cards to coincide with the upcoming Wolfenstein Amazon TV show. I forgot that they did that deal for a Wolfenstein TV show. It's very funny to me, as a fan of the original Castle Wolfenstein and beyond Castle Wolfenstein, that the pathway that all of this has taken to Wolfenstein 3D, to like all of the kind of, like Wolfenstein being thought of as like, oh, here's this really, like early 2000s, late 2000s, like that era of Wolfenstein, the multiplayer stuff that was so well regarded there with enemy territory, and then the kind of modern, Machine Games trilogy always seemed like it needed to be a trilogy. We still haven't, I don't think, last time I looked, there was a Hitler in a robot suit that you probably needed to kill. I liked the way Bethesda handled the release of Wolfenstein. I don't remember if it was Wolfenstein 1 or 2, but it was something that like Pete Hines, who, I think he is retired from he's no longer at Bethesda, but like, he was representing Bethesda at the time, and kind of they just kind of leaned into it a little bit, and they were like, yeah, no, at a time when punching Nazis seems like a good thing to do, like, yeah, maybe we, kind of just addressed that a little bit and went, yep, Nazis are bad. I don't know. It seems weird that so many people are unwilling to say that these days, isn't it? So it's a really interesting time to be potentially working on Wolfenstein 3, considering all the fucking Nazi fucks that are out there and various levels of the government and all this other fucking shit. But man, I would be interested in seeing that. Wolfenstein felt like a franchise that sort of lost its way a little bit because Machine Games got into doing, obviously, Indiana Jones and some of the other stuff. But it felt like they did those couple of side games. There was like the VR game, and then the thing where you played as BJ Blazkowicz's daughters, and like that was like, this is all right, but it's not. I don't know. Like it just didn't feel like enough of the same thing, I guess. Youngblood was just not a great game. So yeah, I don't know. Like we'll see, right? I mean, this is just, I feel like Jez Corden has an interesting track record. I think, he's clearly got some folks that he talks to that have some accurate things. But, plans change. I think when I look at things that he says that don't come to pass, it's usually the things that I look at and go like, yeah, that's probably what they're thinking right now. But those plans can change. Like that stuff was probably accurate at the time that he reported it, but shit happens, But anyway, yeah, I don't know. That stuff is what it is. It's kind of like I think that's the issue with kind of being a person who deals a lot in reporting on rumor and a lot of that sort of stuff is that stuff is all over the place, and sometimes a thing you know to be true at the moment. There have been plenty of times where I've been like, oh, I think this is going to happen any day now. Like the Helldivers 2 on Xbox was a good situation where like I knew that to be happening for months and months and months, and it seemed like something that at the time I first heard it was about to be announced, and it was like, okay, yeah, this is about to happen, and then it just didn't. And so it eventually was true, but it was the sort of thing where I'm like, oh man, I would have thought if this was happening, they would have said it by now. It's kind of weird now that it hasn't happened. What the fuck is going on? And so, yeah, I don't know. Like the like shit happens, man. And plans definitely do change, and games definitely get killed, and I don't know. I've got like I found them. They were gone for a long time, but I've got like video footage of a couple of unannounced and long canceled things sitting on my desktop that I'm like, oh right, this was gonna happen. What the fuck was this? What the fuck even was this? Like shit gets far along to the point where there's like they've put together little vertical slices and trailers and weird shit that just ends up getting thrown by the wayside as plans change. There's like, oh, okay, yeah. Zorga says, Jeff has a fully playable StarCraft Ghost, I bet. No, didn't that leak out? I mean, Ghost is just out there. Like if you want to play StarCraft Ghost, like I thought didn't a GameCube build of it leak out like relatively recently? They never left us with a build of Ghost. They visited us with Ghost and said, here, check it out. And so they never, I don't know if anyone external ever got a build of Star. I mean, someone must have leaked, someone had to leak it eventually, but they came to us with Ghost and showed it to us. I want to say twice. And I think both times I came out of that demo going, no, man, like, none of this needs to fucking happen, man. And then it didn't. And you're like, yeah, okay, that's about right. That seems about right. What was the word on MGS4 back in the day? That was something that would be a better question, I think, for Mark and John. I think like that'd be like that. I think I want to say that it was the Ziff guys that were talking the most about MGS4 on Xbox. But I think we had heard some stuff pretty specifically about, yes, MGS4 is happening on Xbox. And I don't know what the story was there. I still don't know if that was something where they were specifically in development on MGS4 on Xbox, or if it's one of those situations where you hear the rumor of, oh, we're doing some work on an Xbox thing, or hey, Metal Gear's coming to Xbox, and you're like, okay, cool. And then it ended up being the Raiden game. It ended up being Revengeance. Because the timing on that was like, that would have been very early for for something like Revengeance to have been a rumor at that point. But yeah, I mean, I don't actually know where that netted out, like what the reality of that was. Some people have said, yeah, the port was basically finished, but they didn't want to put it out on 8 discs or whatever. But I don't, that's something they could have surmounted in a few different ways if they were really serious about doing it. But yeah, I actually don't know what happened with that, but by the time word got to us, I think it was pretty definitively like, yeah, any day now, MGS4 is going to get announced for Xbox. They've been working on it for a long time. But then when you try to dissect that long after the fact, that's when you start to wonder, like, okay, wait a minute here. So was this actually just a Metal Gear Rising rumor, but you didn't have the whole story? Like, that's sometimes you have to piece together different things you've heard from different people or things you know to be true based on whatever, man. Along with, rumors and, like I'll hear stuff, like I heard some stuff relatively recently that was like PlayStation 6 related that, like, on its own, you'd go like, I don't know, but on its own combined with like 3 or 4 other things I'd heard from other places, you start to go like, okay, yeah, you start to see this, but there are incorrect ways to put those puzzle pieces together. And so you can't really say anything definitive. Other than, I think, with the PS6 stuff specifically, I think every single thing I've heard has continued to point to the notion of them doing 2 pieces of hardware, a handheld and a console. That's not exclusive, whatever, man. That's pretty common shit at this point. But like that's been consistent throughout a lot of this stuff. So I think that stuff is still the case. But like I'm trying to think, man, like Bruce Lee on the original Xbox. This was something I fucked up. This was something I got wrong. We had gotten a hold of screenshots of Cocteau Chojin. And there had been a rumor about a Bruce Lee game on the Xbox. The screenshots were not sourced with a game name or anything like that. And you're like, oh, I know this has to be that Bruce Lee game. This has got to be that Bruce Lee. I think we got a screenshot of that Bruce Lee game. And you put the puzzle pieces together incorrectly. And, you make a mistake. And you're like, oh, actually, we put these up as Bruce Lee screenshots and it's super fucking not. And we fucked that up. And now we have to apologize and all that sort of stuff. So I think, if you're being, which is, in the grand scheme of things, none of that matters, right? It's like, well, I don't know. But yeah, I think that, it's sort of the dangers of kind of living in that space where you're reporting rumors, is that you're hearing things from people who want to talk to you. And sometimes that's really good. And sometimes that's really incomplete, especially when we're talking about new consoles, because a PlayStation 6 at this point is in such a state where like no one has the full story except for the people at the very top, and they're not going to fucking tell you. Or if they are, you're not going to report it because they told it to you off the record in confidence, and you're like, okay, well, now I know, but now I can't do anything with that because I've been sworn to secret, whatever. And so you end up in a situation where you're hearing from someone who is like in the middle of a process at some side studio or this, or, you're hearing from a third party who's like, hey, yeah, I don't know, man. I think we're getting disclosed on new consoles. Like people are acting real weird around here. And we're back to like the locked room, no windows shit from last time. So something is going on. I mean, you don't necessarily know what, but you can piece together of like, okay, normally if they're doing a fucking like closed door meeting, super secret, these people are not here, and only certain people, only 2 people in the whole company get to go in this room, and there's no fucking windows and all. Like you very quickly figure out like, oh, that's what happens when someone's got a prototype of new hardware. When the people had the original Switch prior to that, it was like, here's a ton of people that are at different studios you're hearing about, like, and you're not necessarily hearing about the Switch specifically, but you are hearing that like, hey, I'm pretty sure we've got one. because everyone's acting real fucking weird. And there are a bunch of people going in and out of this room, but it's like a very limited set of people that are badged to this room, and no one else can get in, and they aren't telling us what's in there. So obviously this is obviously they have a fucking switch in there, because what else would they fucking have? Like, you can infer from the timeline, like, okay, yeah, they must have a switch, fucking dev kit in there or something. And so you're never told directly what it is, and so you have to kind of work backwards from there. And there's interesting things you can do with that, right? You don't necessarily go and report everyone's got switch hardware, because you don't know that for certain. But it does give you what you need to start asking different questions. You know what I mean? Like, it's in your adventure game list of topics you can ask an NPC about. You now have Nintendo NX prototype, or, like, whatever has been added to your list. And so you then can go talk to the other people that you talk to and go like, hey, do you hear anything about this? Like, what's going on with this? Or, did you hear about is Gran Turismo coming to Switch? What the fuck's going on? Like you can start to parse out, like, okay, what the fuck is really going on? And that usually ends up being valuable in its own way. It doesn't always lead to a story, but sometimes people just report stuff at that part in the process, and they go like, I'm hearing this, and they write it the way Quarterman used to write it back in the day, this first person style, like, I've heard that this is happening. And so it becomes more about like the individual's reputation instead of the publications. And I think that always ends up weird. I think Jason Schreier does a good job of like only reporting the shit that he fucking knows is actually gonna go. And even in some of those cases, I think there are some things that he's had over the years that has not come to pass the way that he necessarily said. But he's got a relatively high bar for when he will report, when he will actually like put his name, especially now that he's at Bloomberg, like when he will say, here's the story about what's happening, like Jason Schreier on message board is a very different thing than Jason Schreier byline on Bloomberg. You know what I mean? And so there are different standards for all of that sort of stuff. I think some people fire early. Some people go like, oh, we got to get the story now. And they're like me with the Bruce Lee screenshots. And they get out there with something that you look at it and you go, like, there have definitely been cases where I've seen people report stuff and I go like, yeah, no, that's not, like, I see what they're saying here and I know why they're saying it, but the actual, like what's actually happening is this. And I'm not in a position to report what this is, but I know that they're wrong. And some of that shit is, it's just the nature of the beast, man. Like, as I've said, it used to be that these sorts of rumors didn't necessarily get reported at all. Not for any reason of like, oh, we don't want to anger the video game companies or oh, they won't send us exclusive, like that sort of stuff that people always tried to say that these publications were doing for those reasons. It was never that. It was always just like, hey, we want to make sure we're actually right with this shit. We want to try to make sure we've got sources, like multiple sources that will talk about this. And that's hard to come by in a lot of these situations, So I don't know, man. It's everyone who kind of travels in that space. I think they walk a really weird line, and it's interesting sometimes, and sometimes they have some of the most interesting things to discuss. But I think, and sometimes I discuss some of it here, and I try to be very choosy when it comes to like talking about or advancing those sorts of rumors, because like some of that stuff I look at and go, some of it I look at and go, this is probably right. Even if I don't know, there are definitely things that I read and go like, that makes a lot of sense. Like this report, who it's coming from, the timing it's showing up, what it's claiming, like that all lines up in a way that you can go like, that smells like it's probably true. But sometimes that stuff doesn't even happen anyway, right? Like plans change, people get laid off, games get canceled. It just happens like that sometimes. So I don't know. Like that stuff is interesting, but I think you kind of need to you always need to consider the source and go like, okay, this stuff, I kind of have to keep it at arm's length because some of this is not going to be true. And it doesn't make those people bad people. I think that's the weird thing that happens is, and this is something you see a lot in wrestling reporting because everyone in wrestling is trying to report on where the storyline is headed next. And in wrestling, those storylines can change on a fucking dime. In video games, it takes a little bit longer to turn the ship because there's more people involved. There's studios. There's, whether there's layoffs, there's philosophies. There's, there's a lot when it comes to, hey, this game suddenly just got canceled. Like a lot of things led up to that. Whereas in wrestling, someone could wake up the next day and go, goddamn, this guy, he needs to turn heel tomorrow. And shit changes, right? So, but you see the same type of weird anger at the reporters in those spaces. I don't know. I think there are cases where some people have like put out reports on things that I've looked at and been like this is like 20% correct, and then the rest of it is like you're inferring a bunch of weird stuff, and this doesn't seem right. This seems like you're putting yourself out there unnecessarily as a reporter. And there are some stuff that I see that go like that is locked down, like yeah that's happening, and then the plans really do fucking change. It doesn't mean that person was wrong. It means they were right at that very moment. But until a game is on fucking shelves, anything can fucking happen. So I don't know, man. I think people should treat that sort of stuff with a little more grace as well as a lot more skepticism. And just look at that stuff and go, that would be interesting if that happened. Or, hey, I don't know that this seems like it likely, but maybe, yeah. So, it's a bunch of fucking weird shit. Windows Central also is kind of reporting on the roadmap for Windows 11 on handhelds, like specifically the Xbox Ally or the Xbox Ally X or whatever. This thing, I saw it on the shelf the other day and had a moment where I was like, oh, right. That thing came out. Like the Ally, I've since moving out to the garage and the Ally is inside the house, I kind of forgot about it. But I am still curious to see what they're gonna do. And there's sort of a I don't know. Windows Central has a list of like some of these things that are in development to various degrees for the Ally as part of their kind of 2026 roadmap. Number one, shader delivery. This is something that Microsoft has been working on for a while. I think Intel also has a solution to this for people that are running, Intel GPUs that they've talked about with Digital Foundry relatively recently. But like, yeah, they are. Shader compiling on PC sucks. It's annoying. It's a pain in the ass. The Ally is fixed hardware, and so the GPU, the APU, all that stuff that's in there, and so you could pre-compile those shaders and just download them instead of compiling them on device. And that's where Microsoft is headed. I think they eventually want to have a very robust solution for that works across GPU manufacturers and will work on your desktop, and it's something that could eventually solve some of that. At least for people who are playing games out of the Xbox store. Steam does have the ability to do this, but they only really do it for the Steam Deck and for Vulkan and some of that sort of stuff. So I don't know, if Valve is going to beef up their efforts on that front as well. But yeah, there are a couple of games, according to Windows Central. Gears of War Reloaded is already doing this on the Ally. Like, they're already downloading shaders. Automatic SR, automatic super resolution. That'll be something that is apparently only functional on the Xbox Ally X, not on the less powerful Ally. This is a DLSS-esque upscaling thing. Auto SR is supposed to be something that is agnostic. It is supposed to be something that is functional across multiple GPU manufacturers and stuff as well. At least in the initial announcement of it, that's sort of what they were implying. But this is only in discussion right now as an Xbox Ally X feature, according to this. Some game capture, game clip recording stuff. Using the NPU to capture epic moments in highlight reels. That sounds like a cool thing to turn off. Towards the start of spring, the Xbox Ally will get a big boost to the way Windows 11 handles external HDMI devices such as monitors and TVs. Right now, connecting external monitors to Windows 11 is a bit of a mess without heavy mouse-first tinkering. It's not plug and play like it is on a console. Blah, 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 blah. Microsoft says it's planning to boost the docking experience. Microsoft says it's planning to boost the docking experience for Xbox Ally hardware, boosting controller pairing for couch gaming alongside optimized display output and more. Yeah, I don't know. You know, if you're going to dock it to a TV, that should be a smoother experience than it is. Windows 11 on a television right now has gotten a lot better, but it is still something you need to use a mouse to, it's not something you can just do with a controller and go with. It's kind of a pain in the ass. So yeah, that's something they need to do. Better cloud save syncing, or at least like an indicator that lets you know if your save file is there or not. And the last thing that Windows Central has listed on this roadmap is improved external storage device flow. So if you want to install your games to a micro SD card instead of the internal storage, that is some interface stuff that they're looking to improve on the handheld, or with a controller if we want to generalize a bit. Because that's stuff that, you need to format an SD card and that's some Windows ass stuff you might need to drop to actual desktop and do with a mouse and keyboard. So it makes sense that would be something that they would try to improve. I will say none of this is like mega exciting stuff. Like the auto super resolution stuff could be meaningful at getting games to run better on that device. Like kind of a one-size-fits-all DLSS style solution that could be deployed at the Windows level. Not the worst idea in the world. But like the main thing they need right now is that kind of quality of life stuff, and this is all stuff that as we truck closer and closer to the Xbox is just a PC, these are problems they absolutely have to solve before they get there anyway. So yeah. Yeah, the storage interface stuff is really not great. And that's going to do it for the news. Oh, you know what? Wait, actually, that's not true at all. I missed it. How did I had this pasted into this doc, but apparently I did not. Facebook has decided to shutter some studios today. Facebook is, not necessarily getting out of VR completely, but I think as they've said, the metaverse bet they placed is not one they're going to keep placing. And so they have pulled back. This has led to, it looks like both Twisted Pixel and Sanzaru Games have been shut down. That they have actually closed them down completely. Sanzaru did Asgard's Wrath for VR. Twisted Pixel did they did the Deadpool game. So that shipped like really recently and was like relatively well received, I thought. But Facebook is, well, whatever. I mean, Facebook pivoted to AI, and now it seems like that they are trying to pivot away from AI into robots or something. I don't know what the fuck they're going to waste money on next. But like, yeah, Zuckerberg woke up one day and realized like, hey, this thing that has sucked shit all along is never going to happen. I need to stop spending money on it. Why the fuck, like, This seemed like something that from a mile away you could see like, yeah, VR is not going to happen the way they think it is. And all of their Horizon like virtual world stuff sucks fucking shit. It's mind-blowing that they have gone so far. Like, so if you used a Quest headset, they have a store on there and you can go and buy games in VR like some kind of fucking maniac. But they also have a phone app for that, and you can tether your phone to the device, and you can get, I think your text messages will show up in the headset or whatever. But like, they built a storefront for VR for phones, and then at some point, like 1 or 2 years ago, whatever it was, they like rebuilt that entire app to be about their dog shit metaverse fucking chat room shit. And so they have built this like garbage ass, like the most fucking half-assed VR Roblox looking bullshit with like trash ass avatars, and just like, oh, they've built all that stuff, and now that's like front and center. Like if you want to buy the fucking Deadpool game or look and see like what came out on the headset that I could buy, you've got to scroll past like pages and pages of fucking metaverse trash, like the fucking most trash ass corporate fucking takeover version of VR chat. Like, hey, let's take VR chat and take all the cool shit out of it. Oh, great. Yeah. What are you left with? Yeah, I don't know. It's Microsoft Teams for people who want to wear headsets. Yeah, cool, man. That sucks ass. And so when you open the Horizon app, like they even renamed the app to a point where you're like, what, you know, like I'm typing it in to try to find, because it's not on my front page. I don't know where it's installed. It's installed on my phone somewhere. Like they even renamed it in ways that make it fucking harder to find where to buy the games. So yeah, man, it's no wonder that like they have not been serious about VR maybe ever, but certainly not recently. And so, you know, even in the wake of something like Deadpool shipping, which is, again, you know, for a VR game has been relatively well regarded, I cannot say I am shocked at the idea that some of the game studios that Facebook purchased when it thought it cared about VR gaming are being shut down. Twisted Pixel had a super weird road where they were owned by Microsoft for a while and then became independent. And then when there was money to be had in the VR space, they suddenly started making VR games that, what was it? It's someone's name and then the word heart after it. Twisted Pixel made Wilson's Heart, came out in 2017, and that was a neat thing at the time. But at the time, you also looked at it and went like, yeah, I mean, get paid. I don't know, man. Twisted Pixel, you know, I as much as I like Splosion Man and Ms. Splosion Man, you know, Comic Jumper. Like it made sense that they were suddenly like, oh, we're gonna make some VR games, because that was new enough at the time, and yeah, there were still people out there giving money to people who were making VR games, and so it made sense as a way to, and then that got them purchased by Facebook, as they were like one of the handful of studios that were doing kind of cool shit in VR at the time. It's a far cry. It's a long ways away from the wavy Tube Man Chronicles, you know, that Gunstringer DLC. One of the few Kinect products worth speaking of in a positive tone. You know, not like main Gunstringer is fine. It's okay. It's cool. But the wavy Tube Man Chronicles, I didn't call those things wavy Tube Mans until the wavy Tube Man Chronicles was released. The wavy Tube Man Chronicles is like so Gunstringer is like it's a shooter. It's almost like a light gun shooter, but it is a Kinect game. And Gunstringers, what was kind of they made a thing, and then they put out DLC for it called The Wavy Tube Man Chronicles, where they went out and shot their own bootleg fucking parody of fucking Mad Dog McCree. They literally they said we're gonna make a fucking FMV light gun game for Kinect because fuck you, and it's fucking incredible. It is amazing that they made that, and like Lloyd Kaufman is in it. Like it's just it looks like something that was incredibly fun to make from a studio that seemed like they were having a lot of fun making games right up until Loco Cycle, right up until the Xbox One. And yeah, that's how I remember Twisted Pixel. You know, by the time they were doing VR stuff and the Wilson's Heart stuff, and yeah, like I was like, okay, yeah, this stuff's all right. But Wavy Two Man Chronicles fucking rules. Like it's annoying because the Kinect stuff is what it is, but dude, you should at least go look at the Wavy Tube Man Chronicles if you were not equipped to play it. I might also say it's more fun as a concept than it is as an actual video game, and all of that too. But yeah, that stuff's neat. Sanzaru did Sanzaru, were they doing Disney Infinity packs there before they became a VR studio? I feel like Sanzaru was doing okay, so they did like the Sly collection for PS3. They did that, like that port of they were involved in doing like God of War collection for Vita, and so they were doing some of that stuff for Sony there. Okay, they did Tron Runner, the endless runner based on Tron that everyone played, right? Everyone played? No? But they did that Spyro trilogy and then made Asgard's Wrath, and then at some point in the middle of that, making that pivot to VR, they got purchased by Facebook, and so yeah, it sounds like they are they have been shut down as well, and you know, it's not great. There's a lot of folks out there that are out there kind of posting and saying like, hey, I just got laid off, and it looks like the whole studio is gone now too. And I don't know, like it fucking sucks. Also, it's again, it's not hard to imagine why. You know, even if Facebook does suck shit for the way they're doing this sort of stuff, also at the same time, it's not like VR is the vibrant development landscape that it was. And so even in these situations where you have like studios that were responsible for like, I would say like relatively important VR games at the time, Asgard's Wrath and Wilson's Heart were both like big deals for VR when they were released. And it felt like, oh, this is going to be like the next generation of this stuff. And we're going to, as this stuff moves forward, like we're going to, you know, these are the sorts of studios that are going to do it. And I guess, you know, but again, like Facebook has been running away screaming from VR stuff for a while now. And I wonder what their headset, like their hardware future looks like in this stuff. Like, yeah, there's a Quest 3. Will there be a Quest 4? Like back when we were talking about, I think it was before the Quest 3 was out, The Verge had a big report on their entire upcoming lineup of headsets and the stuff that like they were, okay, we're going to do Quest Pro, and then there'll be a Quest 3, and there'll be this. And a lot of it was, you know, it looked iterative at the time, but also it kind of came with kind of some further reporting around it, like kind of after, I think it was after like the Quest 3's first holiday season was maybe when this other report came out. It kind of said like, yeah, man, like people are buying the headsets, but they just aren't fucking using them. Like people buy the headset, they put it on for a little bit, they go, yep. And then they don't buy any games. And then and so like Facebook currently sells a subscription. Like they have a subscription service for VR games, like a Game Pass kind of thing that you can subscribe to, and they're like, you get over 100 VR games as part of this subscription or whatever. And maybe that's a good deal. I don't know. I never look to see which games are in the mix with that or not. So I can't tell you one way or the other. But it just, you know, it hasn't looked like a vibrant or healthy development environment for a long time. And Facebook's interest in it was always going to be limited to, like, you know, hey, is this thing working? Is this thing making us a bunch of money? Do we think we can but they always had that interest in their metaverse bullshit anyway. So even as they started to talk more and more about that, that was them spending less and less time talking about the game studios they acquired, the developers out there making games for the headset. Like, that whole environment just seemed like poisoned from the top. In conjunction with the public not really wanting that shit at the end of the day, you know, like, there's just sort of a factor here that I think, like, people like to ignore. It's that the public has kind of spoken on this multiple times. There have been multiple rounds of like, hey, what do you think? And a large chunk of people goes, that's fucking awesome. And then a subset of that chunk goes, okay, I'm a true believer on this shit. This is the rest of my life now. And then you've got a lot of other people that try it out once and go, okay, that's really neat. It's a hassle. I don't want to, you know, like, you know, okay. And it's just not sustainable. So what the fuck is the Steam frame going to do differently? Is it just that it's going to run the same stuff that your PC runs and that will be enough? Like, I don't know that that's going to be enough. But Valve also isn't necessarily in this to sell 1 billion headsets, right? Facebook had to be the biggest thing. Like, they had to be changing the world with whatever the horseshit fucking concept they had for the metaverse, right? That was their real focus. It wasn't, hey, we want to put out a thing that people can play games on, and that's cool. It didn't stop there. It wasn't like, hey, man, you can play the fucking Tetris effect on this. This is cool. No, it was, we're changing the world with bullshit. Look at these hot legless avatars. It's just fucking pointless, you know? So I don't know what the, like, will there be enough developers? Like, the money I don't think will come back. And so maybe you've got enough smaller studios and hobbyist developers and whatever else that will want to continue making VR things because they just really believe in it. You know, like Jeff Minter, Tetsuya Mizuguchi, like, those are developers I would like to see continue making things in VR because I think they make cool things in VR. But, like, that's not a market. I would not go get into the VR headset business on the back of, like, man, those two people and the teams of people around them sure are good at making this stuff. Like, you know, it's just, I don't know, man. It just seems like a market that is over. And I wonder what that means for, like, what the expectations of the Steam frame, or just like what is there? And again, like, what will Facebook do next? Like, Facebook seems all in on you know, Google Glass 2.0, you know, like, hey, what's some cool ways for us to fucking fuck people over on the privacy front even harder? Is it selling glasses that record shit? Cool. Let's do that. And all this other shit out of CES that's like, here's a pendant you can use to record every conversation you have. I'm going to fucking... If I see people wearing that shit and I'm sitting there at a fucking table with them and they're wearing this fucking thing, I feel like it is my duty as a human to grab that thing, snatch it off their fucking neck, and throw it into water. Like, you're sitting at a restaurant with somebody and you look and see that they're wearing one of these things. Don't you just go, fuck you, and you just drop it into a drink and go, no wires, man. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you wearing a wire? What the fuck? Why would you wear a fucking wire? Why would you willingly wear a fucking wire? What the fuck is wrong with you? Don't you know what happens to people that fucking wear wires? You're lucky that it's just getting fucking dumped into a fucking drink. Fucking crazy, man. Anyway, that's the news. My heart goes out to the developers of Wilson's Heart. Jeff's Heart. And that Deadpool game that just came out like what, like 3 months ago, something like that. I don't know. Like it was up for a game award. Like people, I mean, thin fucking field, right? But people did seem to like that Deadpool game. I think I am incapable of liking a Deadpool thing, just because the talking. You know, that's going to do it for the news. I mean, unless something else just happened. Let's look. Nope. That's going to do it for the news. Let's check out some emails. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address. You can email me. That's right. Send me an email, and I will check it out, and I will read some of them on the program. So old Jimbo wrote in a few times here about Fortnite and the Robloxification of Fortnite. That's been rolling on. They have added the ability for some of the games that people are making within Fortnite to now have microtransactions of their own, and a storefront where you can spend V-Bucks on whatever these developers want you to do. And he has noted that the first rollout, as the early rollout of that seems to be happening, it's a lot of fucking blind boxes and rip-off. Like, basically, it's a lot of Roblox-like stuff. A lot of fucking gambling-ass blind box type stuff here. He sent a screenshot of a game here that has... There's a blind box here that appears to be $49. Which is nasty. Just nasty. People have started reporting more and more on this. PC Gamer published something yesterday about this sort of stuff here. IGN as well. Like the question that old Jimbo had was like, why aren't people reporting on this? And then all the stories went up. So he wrote back and said, oh, all the stories are starting to hit. Steal the Brain Rot now offers a Present Rot bundle for 4,900 V-Bucks. That's $37 if you buy it in a bundle, according to PC Gamer. You can also spin a virtual wheel for a shot at various in-game effects for small amounts of cash for 100 V-Bucks a spin. Yeah, dude. I mean, that's disgusting. Also, it's a feature of the most popular game on the planet, Roblox. And so, on a certain level, of course Fortnite was going to do this. This has been something that has been proven out to be popular and a real moneymaker. And it's fucking bad. There is a parental guidance setting here that you can... Interesting. Okay. So one of the screenshots he sent here is there is a toggle for allow paid random items. And so it seems like that Epic's answer to this is to have a toggle that if you remember how all the parental controls work, you can potentially go in and disable this on your child's account, assuming they have a child account and not an adult account, because you lied so that they could have an adult account or what have you. That seems like a buried kind of deep sort of thing. This stuff just shouldn't be allowed. I mean, Roblox is fucking scary. For as how popular as it is and for how nasty a lot of the transactions, and I haven't looked at Roblox in a few months here, but like last time I loaded up some Roblox and we streamed a little Roblox and looked at grow a garden and a few, like the fashion thing and a couple of other things. I don't think Steal a Brain Rot was out at that point. I think we were just on the other side of the brain rot takeover. This whole thing is built on this. And honestly, like, do you think a guy like Tim Sweeney is going to be swayed into like, oh, it's actually super wrong that children get exposed to this? Like, no. He is going to push the responsibility onto parents and parental controls as much as he can, while also probably riding a line where those controls are hard to navigate and deal with. That's the true, like, libertarian thing to do. When he's not out there like defending Twitter's ability to generate child pornography, which is a real interesting stance for any human to take, and then try to say they're not taking it without like, no, that's, I mean, when you say one, you mean the other. Also, you cannot separate those things. I'm sorry. That's like, what the fuck are you doing? Ugh. What a world, right? Video games, they changed the world. Aren't we excited at how much video games changed the world? We all were waiting. Back in the 80s, we were like, man, these video games are fucking awesome. Video games are going to change the world. And then they did. Please go bet on the Golden Globes. What a fucking nightmare. What a fucking nightmare, dude. If only there was a platform that didn't include social media. Oh, wait, the Commodore 64 Ultimate. So yeah, man, what the fuck? Like, just as a childhood or a adolescent sort of thing, the idea that you've got like Tim Sweeney out there and everything he says about anything like this is always just the worst, and you're just like, oh my God, what the fuck? And then you've got John Carmack basically kind of being the same, except like he's saying, oh, maybe we should try to convince people to come back to Twitter. Like, oh yeah. Right? What a good idea. Maybe we should try to convince people to come back into the white nationalist factory. Like, should we hang out here? Are you fucking for real? Quake versus Unreal. No one won, it turns out. 0 winners. All these years later, we can definitively say it. Holy shit. Anyway. What's the Lithtech engine up to these days? No, God damn it. Jake from Boston writes in, I sometimes stop and find myself thinking about Midway's Dr. Muto. Does this ever happen to you? I got it as a Christmas gift when I was in the 5th grade, and I remember it being kind of mid. That's all. Yes. I think any longtime listener of this podcast knows that the words Dr. Muto come out of my mouth way more than they ever should. Dr. Muto is a platformer that Midway produced. You're like a mad scientist guy. It was like GameCube, Xbox, PS2. To me, Dr. Muto was a representative of that era of Midway when they were just publishing a lot of shit and some of it was bad. Dr. Muto is not a great game. It's no The Suffering. Like, if we're talking about midpoint era Midway games that are defensible, The Suffering is on one side of the line, Dr. Muto is on the other. But yes, I think about Dr. Muto, I'm going to say more than the average person who is, let's limit it to people who are aware of Dr. Muto. I probably bring it up more frequently than 99% of those people. And I don't think I reviewed that game. I don't think I played that game with to any degree. I recently, because it keeps coming up and keeps coming out of my mouth for some reason, I did actually play some of it. If not last year, then the year before. And even the introductory parts of that game are so fucking miserable. It's like, oh, goddamn, Dr. Muto. Jesus. What are we doing? Let's see. Brandon from San Marcos, Texas, writes in with a kind of a long one about difficulty and accessibility in games. I was listening to last week's show when you were talking about difficulty and accessibility options in games like God mode, instant kill, objective markers, etc., and how these are available for players who want them and can be turned off for players who don't. You mentioned that, not everyone has been playing games as long as you, and it got me thinking about my experience getting my wife into games. She played a lot of Tony Hawk, and they just truly are forgettable. No, sorry. She played a lot of Tony Hawk and just truly forgettable character action games like Kia on her PS2. Kia. And then checked out of games until our relationship. Since then, her favorite game of all time is Control. She loved Alan Wake and has finished every shrine in Breath of the Wild on 2 profiles. She tore through Hades 1 and 2 and is currently on a platforming kick and loves playing the Astrobots and the recent SpongeBob THQ game. The common through line for basically everything on this list except Zelda is that she can turn the difficulty way down. It really made me rethink my own approach to games, where I usually turn on the mode that is most analogous to Halo's heroic mode. Hard, but not the fucked up unfair hard. And examine what I'm really getting out of it. Am I having a better time grinding through this? Am I a better person because I ruined the Uncharted games for myself by only playing them on hard, a difficulty that is obviously not balanced around? Did I have a more authentic experience burning myself out on Call of Duty campaigns long ago by playing on veteran? I don't think so, and because of her and how much enjoyment she gets out of trivializing combat, it's made me appreciate that as I approach 40, I do actually enjoy easy and normal the most, because sometimes it's nice to just theme park a game. I just wanted to share these thoughts as someone who is having a lived experience the same as the straw man you were inventing. I'm glad modern games are more eager to meet here where she is with difficulty and a camera inversion, another relic of the PS2 era my wife still has. Gross. Still married, huh? Than anything we've tried to play together from the 360 or earlier. Yeah, difficulty and balancing games is an art, and I don't think that a lot of developers put a lot of time and effort into that art, because they're not necessarily incentivized to do so. I prefer a game to get it right on normal. I'm rarely, and some of this is just like reviewer brain, but I tend to stick with the default options, when I play a game, because I think that that's what most players are going to do. And if I'm reviewing the game, I should be trying to review the game that they are likely to play. And so that means normal or default or, whatever it defaults to at the end of the day. But yeah, I think that, games that just get harder by tweaking the numbers. It's like, oh, now it takes a couple more shots to kill these guys. And like we've tweaked their accuracy so that they're more difficult. And so basically you just have to be a lot more careful. Fuck that. It's just not fun. Like, I don't, like, it's just, like, that's not, and I think a big part of it for me is, like, I want things to be a challenge. I want to have to be, like, on my shit to a certain extent, right? I want to have to pay attention. If a game is putting me to sleep because I'm just like, or if a game is like, hey, we built all these systems and you don't have to engage with them at all. But but on the harder difficulties, you have to engage with them more because the elemental defenses and stuff are like, there's more elemental enemies on hard. And so you have to care about this system that you don't have to care about otherwise. Like, I think that's bad too. But ultimately, like, what I want out of a game is a game that is going to force me to be engaged. But also, as someone who is, I mean, and this might also be a reviewer brain kind of thing, but as someone who doesn't necessarily have a ton of patience or time, I do not want to have moments where I am playing the same bit over and over and over again. And so for me, that kind of ideal difficulty becomes like, when I die, I want to know it's because I fucked up. Like, I took my eye off the ball, man, and I got fucking smoked. Like, shit happens. Okay, that's on me. Or, hey, there's a new mechanic here that you need to get good at in order to proceed. Like, something that's like a meaningful change in the gameplay that you need to learn, and you're going to have a little bit of trouble with it at first. Or like, hey, you lack the focus to do this kind of task. I don't need the tasks to be menial. I don't want something that is just like brain dead, super easy, walk through it. No, like that's not fun either. Sometimes cheating in a game and fucking around with it like that can be fun. But that's not what I'm looking for, right? And that was my problem with Assassin's Creed when it comes to accessibility, is because of the color blindness stuff, I had to turn the difficulty down. And the difficulty, when lowered, made the game dumb. It sucked any tension out of it. It became a story. And it became a story that I was just not that engaged with, I didn't find myself going, oh, I've got to play through this to witness the amazing story of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like, the story was good, but it's only going to work in conjunction with, like, me enjoying playing it moment to moment. Now, obviously, you turn it up too hard and it becomes too, sweaty, if you want to use the term. And you're just like, okay, I don't want to be fucking on for 40 hours. Like it, like I don't need it to be like, I don't want to have to play perfectly the entire time. That's not fun. That's too much. But I also can't stand it if a game is just like you're just farting your way through this thing, just like, all right, whatever, stuck that guy, let's go. And that was how I had to play Assassin's Creed Shadows, because the color blindness stuff was not good. And so I stopped playing it, like I just, at a certain point, it was like, oh, like I am in theory enjoying this game. And if I could play it the way it was intended to be played, I would probably enjoy the combat a lot more. But instead I'm just walking up and murdering these fuckers. And that's only fun up to a point. And you're like, okay, yeah, I'm done walking up to camps of dudes and just smoking them. Like there's nothing to this. I'm practically invincible, and that's not fun either. So that was a real bummer for me on a personal level, that like most people would not have that problem, because most people are not colorblind. But yeah, I do think that, you do want a variety of settings for people. But I would say that, like, when it comes to wanting a variety of settings for people, generally that's on the easier side, because I think you want to make room for a wider range of people to be able to play the game. The only reason I say that is because I think most harder difficulty settings in games are fucking bad. Because again, they don't tune the entire game around it. They tune the entire game a certain way and then go, I don't know, can we put like a few more guys and then also just tweak accuracy up and, like make this parry window smaller, and, it's a math problem. And I think when difficulty becomes a math problem in most games, that doesn't work. Or it doesn't work well enough, at some point it's like, this doesn't feel like it's super fun to engage with either. I would rather get really good at the normal mode, and by the end of the game feel like I have become more powerful, both by virtue of games do that, but also because I have improved at the game, to feel like, okay, now I am taking these challenges out. Like it's like leveling up in an RPG and being able to go back to the starting area and one shot every enemy. Like, it's nice to have that feeling, but it's you. Like, I got better at this in a way that now I can fucking, these things that were giving me trouble 4 hours ago, I am smoking these motherfuckers. So that to me is like a fine progression for a game, and then it ends, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily need a game to just start harder and like it oftentimes the way those end up getting balanced, it just doesn't work. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't work as well. It doesn't feel like they've taken the experience up to a higher level, and it's like, now I need to be even better at the game. It's like, oh, now I need to be better at the game because there's just more bullshit headed my way. Oh, I walked into this room and then every single enemy on screen threw a grenade at my feet. Fun. Thanks. At least I get to read this cool anti-war quote. Thanks, Call of Duty. Like, that shit sucks. And unless you want the achievement for it and you're like, look at me, I did this bullshit. It's like, congratulations, you waded through garbage. Like the way those things get tuned, especially that era of Call of Duty campaign, the way they were tuning those things fucking sucks, dude. Like that's not a fun difficulty, you know? I want difficulty to come from like, okay, like you got really good at this game on normal and now you're going to have to like, you know, apply those skills to a different degree, to a higher level, you know? Like it needs to feel like a meaningful progression. But that's also cut with, I'm not going to play most games twice. And unfortunately, the right way to do difficulty, I think in a lot of cases, is to say, exhibit that you have mastered these concepts first, and then we will let you get into the fucked up thing where you have to be on point. But also, I'm never going to finish a game on normal and go, I got to go play this on hard. Like, fuck that. Who has the time? There are 9,000 games came out while this podcast was being recorded. You think I'm going to go play a game fucking twice? Come on. So, yeah, I think that stuff is, like, I don't know what the answer is there. You know, I don't know what the right solution is there. But I do think that, like, there's plenty of room to make games easier while still being engaging and fun. The other end of it can be a problem too, right? And for some players, they won't necessarily notice. And, you know, it's you know, they're playing a game on easy and they're cakewalking their way through it and they're like, yay. But also, you know, I think it's, you know, in a world where I think that, you know, more people are playing games than ever before. And I think we, you know, and you know, even if you know, people who make games should probably feel this way. But I do think there's a benefit to players because I think at the end of the day, we want more people playing games. You know, like the health of this industry is in question. You know what I mean? And so games that push new players away, I think I think that's unfortunate, you know? There are some games that are going to be built a certain way for a certain type of player, and I think that's okay too. I don't think every single game needs to go out of its way to cater to every single type of player. It's an impossible goal that, you know, if you do it wrong, you end up watering your entire game down in ways where you lose the crowd of people who have been playing games for a long time too, you know? And so it's a tricky problem. It's a very delicate balance, and I don't think there's any way to really please anyone. But I think if I were making a game, I would err on the side of making sure that my normal and my easier difficulties were good. I want normal to be a good, sane challenge. I want easy to be easy in ways that make players still feel like they're maybe learning the mechanics and able to have a better time with the game along the way. And that they might be able to graduate into a higher difficulty setting if they wanted to play it twice, which they don't. But like ideally you're leaving the player off better at video games than when they came in because they finished this game and they learned a thing or two along the way. They became, you know, for new players, that's been the interesting thing about having kids now and watching them play games and watching them learn how to even just hold a fucking controller is like that stuff snowballs. The confidence that a player can get out of one game will lead to them going and trying a thing that was maybe too much for them before. And I think that matters. And the harder difficulty settings, I think those are very important. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, like I also think that that's a lot harder to do. That's something that if you're doing those right, you're spending real time on it. You're not tweaking numbers and tweaking math and going like, well, we're going to take some of the health kits out and we're going to make the enemies shoot better. You know, like at some point that's just not real difficulty, you know? So I ultimately, I think it's just it's a really difficult problem to solve, and game developers rarely have the time. You know, when you think about all of the things that have to come together for a game to ship, I don't think it leaves a lot of time to really do a really good pass on making a really great higher difficulty setting. Players don't finish games on normal. You know, look at all these achievement stats out there that we have access to. Players don't finish games, period. You're going to waste time on an even harder difficulty setting that a smaller subset of your audience are even going to ever touch. I don't know. I get why it happens. I get why harder difficulties are rarely done in a fun and engaging way, but it's just tough, man. Jedi Mass 4 writes in, says, a while back I sent a question about what we think Nintendo should do with Super Smash Bros. For the Switch 2. Folks believed that the best course of action would be to just re-release Ultimate in a deluxe pack for Switch 2. I thought about it a bit more from Nintendo's business perspective. Smash Bros. Is one of their best system-selling IPs. Ultimate is the third best-selling game on the Switch 1 with about 37 million copies sold, and only behind Animal Crossing and Mario Kart 8 in sales. Some folks would cite Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's success as a reason to do that for Ultimate, but the key difference there is that almost no one bought a Wii U, so Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was as much a new game for most people as anything newly released. I don't think the same trick would be as effective when a lot of people do have a Switch 1 and did play Ultimate. If they want Smash to help sell Switch 2s, I don't know if extra content for Ultimate is enough to entice people to spend money on a new console. A new game that's exclusive to Switch 2, if it hits, could entice people to buy a new console. What do you think? I think this is a numbers problem, and I think we don't have access to the numbers. What I would like to know, the answer to this question, I think, for me, would be influenced by, okay, we know that Smash Ultimate sold 37 million copies or whatever, right? How many people bought all the DLC? How many people were engaged enough with that Smash Brothers game to keep up with it, to buy the new characters, to buy the extra stuff? Like how many people bought all those packs? Like what do those numbers look like? Because those are the numbers of people that if you put out Smash on Switch 2 and it'd be Smash Brothers Ultimate Switch Nintendo Switch 2 edition with a cool hyphen in it. Then how much could you get away with, like, hey, we're putting this game out again and we are going to we're going to do 3 more seasons of content to it. Or hey, Nintendo Switch 2 edition comes with another season of characters right now. Here's another 8 players. And then we're going to support it for another 5 years or whatever. I do think that, my answer to this also has probably changed since we thought about it last, because now we've seen what Nintendo does when they bring Switch 1 games to Switch 2. When they sell the upgrade and sell the Nintendo Switch 2 edition and all of that shit. So for Smash Brothers, I assume that if they were to do that for Switch 2, it would be like light, right? It'd be like, okay, we're going to maybe we'll include all the DLC or do a Nintendo Switch 2 edition complete version for more than the standard upgrade price. That gives you all the characters or whatever if you don't already have them. Otherwise, what? It's better resolution. The frame rate in Smash is not really a problem. You could maybe go to 120 on certain situations if you wanted to, I guess. I don't know. That's fine. But like graphical enhancements, you're probably not going to do a ton. It probably won't be as dramatic as it was for Zelda, for example. They typically add content with that, like Super Mario Wonder is getting some new stuff. Mario Party got like the mouse stuff and some other shit. And so there's typically some content that goes along with that. In the case of Smash, they could say, hey, there's going to be, 8 more characters in this version of the game. And here you go. I guess, would you continue to sell all those characters for Switch 1? Or would you cut those players off and say, no, you have to upgrade if you want this? Like, I don't know. Like, that seems like a precarious position to be in. And so I think with the way that Nintendo does their Switch 2 upgrades, I think it makes a little less sense to just take the existing game and put it back out. But I do think that, like, the other option of, hey, we're going to put out a game with a smaller roster and then spend years updating it all over again is kind of weird too. So I don't know what the actual answer is here. You know, like we can look at other fighting game sequels for like real fighting game sequels and kind of look at what they've done. And see if there's like something you could learn there that Smash Brothers might try to do. You know, obviously there's been sequels to Smash Brothers games in the past. So, you know, do you do another one of those? Obviously, like there's single player modes and other weird shit. And yeah, bring the Subspace Emissary. Sure, why not? Bring it all back. Yeah, Super Smash World and Open World Smash. God damn it. Why not? Sure. The way Terraria was to Minecraft, Smash Brothers will be. It's a 2D open world game. Why not? That's a terrible idea. But sure. But also sure. Why not? So yeah, you could gin up a new single player mode and whatever. Like presumably they would do something like that, and that's fine. Yes, they should. But I mean more for like the competitive game and for the online game and for that aspect of it, like the characters and the stages and what are you really doing here? What are you really trying to accomplish with a sequel when you called your last game Ultimate and put a fucking and everyone was there? You have already made the game wherein everyone was there. So to go and make a game that does not have everyone is automatically perceived as something of a step down. And so, do you revamp all of the mechanics? You certainly could. I wouldn't mind that. As someone who is not much of a fan of Smash Brothers, I think if they were to roll the dice and make incredibly dramatic changes to that game and the way it plays, I'd be like, yeah, maybe it'll be good now. I don't know. Sure, let's try it. But like, that's not something that they would do dramatic. You know, like there are subsystems and things that they could change the same way Street Fighter changes from 4 to 5 and from 5 to 6. You know, there's those types of changes, right? Like, oh, the meters work differently. Oh, we did this. Like, you could do that. You know, fighting system changes. Like, that's stuff you could do in Smash. But would that be enough? And you run the risk there of making something that players end up not liking or whatever, right? Does Sakurai do it? Or does Sakurai finally go like, you're not getting me to fucking sign up for another one of these. Fuck you. I got a bunch of people that worked with me on those games. I taught them everything I know. Trust me. Leave me alone. I'm so tired. Holy shit. Leave me alone. And maybe you get a bunch of fresh faces in there that do something completely different with Smash. And maybe that's terrible. I don't know. You know, like, you know, you're really rolling the dice at that point. You know, I think Ultimate was relatively well received, right? I mean, people are always going to go like, oh, I only play fucking Project M and Nintendo can suck it and we can't play it at tournaments anymore. So I got to play it in a hotel room and, you know, we got to play it under cover of darkness because otherwise they're going to find us. And whatever else, right? But at the end of the day, Ultimate seems like it did just fine. And, you know, there's a wide swath. I'd say the majority of Smash players probably don't give a shit about any of that stuff. The competitive whatever, you know, like they care about it in an oblique way, in an abstract kind of way, but they are not there for that level of fucking bullshit. They're not going to go like, I'm trying to count frames on these sex kicks. Like, no. And so they make another game that has all the items and all the fucking crazy shit that Smash Brothers always has, and there's always some subset of people that just go like, I only want to play on the flat stage with no items because fun is for assholes. Do you think these people play Mario Kart with no items? I mean, can you even turn items off in Mario Kart? Like what the fuck are you doing? The idea of taking Smash Brothers seriously is already kind of a dumb idea. But whatever. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like there are so many characters in Smash now that you would want the vast majority of those characters to be there, right? Or what do you do? Could you do? I would want dramatic, different takes on the characters. I think. Right? Because like Mario has been Mario for a very long time. And obviously they have done things to Mario as a Smash character over the years, but like, I don't know, man. Could you, do you do like a fucking... How do you overhaul all of it? Because I feel like the things they do in Smash are generally the right answers to the question. Like, what's Mario do? He jumps good and he throws a fireball. Yeah. Okay, we can put that in a fight. We can put that into a fighting like a game over here. Sure. Yes, just give everyone a motorcycle. There you go. That's Nintendo's solution to every problem this generation is put a motorcycle on it and put an amiibo on it. So it's easy to sit here and say, man, what if they had a dramatically different take on Mario as a fighting character? You know? Like, what if they just, like, threw all this shit away and said, okay, we want to make Mario into a fighting character? I mean, personally, I would love to see them just make a traditional, proper fighting game and get rid of all this fucking platforms and fucking knocking people. Like, no, give me fucking life meters and fucking supers and like, and all of that. Like, that to me would be the far more exciting fucking Nintendo fighting game than the stuff they're doing now. But like, I don't know, man. Like, what if, like, I want a dramatically different take on these characters, but also the characters are so iconic that it's hard to get away from some of that stuff. What does Link do? He's got a bow and arrow and bombs and fucking, I don't know. Can he hit people with a raft? Can we make it so his fucking C-stick bullshit pulls out the fucking raft and hits people with it? That'd be funny. They should do that. Clock people with the fucking raft. But I think what you could do... So I would want something dramatically different, but I think you can't get away from that. So what if instead it was like, okay, you're going to build up a meter and you're going to pop into a different mode. Like, it is effectively, and we're just like fucking fan booking here or whatever. But what if you had the equivalent of like these characters go fucking Super Saiyan and fucking like they get totally different and Mario fucking grows muscles out of his muscles and fucking like just does some fucking extra weird shit. Like, what if you had like, and that was like, okay, we have two takes on these characters. One is the traditional take, and then there's the like leveled up fucking like, or yeah, stand. Like, you call in Mario's stand and it's just a bigger, crazier Mario, or something like that. I don't know, something that still has the essence of these characters, but is able to take it into a more wild and interesting direction or something. I don't know. Like, that, I think that's just hard to do, and people. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something like that gives me something different to latch onto. Because now, when Smash Brothers first came out, it was fucking amazing. Like, the very first Smash Brothers, Super Smash Brothers 64, whatever the fuck, it was fucking cool as hell. Because they're like, oh yeah, we're making a fighting game, kind of. You know how we do like Mario Kart? We're going to do one of those, but they fucking hit each other. We're like, okay. Awesome. Pikachu's in it and they fucking fight? That's dope. Like, it's fucking incredible. But, over the years, like, the novelty of that is not there, right? You're like, okay, yeah, Smash Brothers is just a thing they do, and now it's got this weird stigma. Like, it's got all this weird stuff attached to it that is very specific to the Smash fucking series and franchise, and like now it's all kind of locked in ways that are boring, So I don't know. I don't think that they could get away with it, because I think that there's a player base there that is sort of holding them hostage, and it's rare that happens to Nintendo. They're usually able to say, fuck the fans. They're the Hoodslam of video game publishers. That's right. Nintendo is the Hoodslam of video game publishers. But But in this case, I don't think that I think that there would be too much of a rebellion from the, the established Smash Brothers community to really get away with doing something dramatically different. And so I don't know. I think you're left in a hard spot here, where there's only so much you can really do. And they did a lot of it in Ultimate. And so, you can carve out some new systems and concepts and things here, but at the end of the day, it's a game about fucking hitting them with these attacks and then fucking using your right stick, whatever, fucking smash attack to knock them off the stage. And it's just, it kind of is what it is, and that's served them well for all this time. And so I think in some ways that loops back around to, fuck it, at this point, just put out Ultimate again and start with that entire roster as your starting point and say, okay, now we're going to add more characters from here. That way you don't get trapped by the we've cut it back down to 12 characters and now we're going to, now we're going to spend the next 3 years adding back, some of these characters and also some new ones. And you're going to go man, it's really cool that these characters are in here, but I can't play a Solid Snake anymore. That's kind of shitty. That's not a fun balance. I don't know. It's a tough one. I would have said the same thing last time around though, before Ultimate came out, that it just feels like, not that these games have zero changes between them. Obviously they do have meaningful differences from entry to entry, but it does feel like they're kind of mildly locked in on the thing that they're making and the way those characters are. And it's a shame because I think they're the kind of one long running franchise like this that could maybe, there's a path to making those changes, Whereas I don't think Street Fighter could get away with it ever, period. They're done. They tried to do a different game. It was Street Fighter 3. People were fucking pissed. And Street Fighter 3 eventually got its respect, but people were fucking pissed at what they did with Street Fighter 3. And Capcom will never take that sort of chance again. For better or worse. At least not in a numbered Street Fighter game. Garrick from Grand Rapids writes in. Says, who is the filthiest rapper in history musically? That's so weird. And question number 2, who is the best filthy rapper in history that is mostly known for their filthy raps? It says, Ice Cube has some truly filthy tracks on Death Certificate, but he isn't famous for being filthy as a whole. Two Live Crew is famous for being filthy, but their music isn't very good. Garrick, fuck you for what you've said about Uncle Luke and the Two Live Crew. I would argue that The Fuck Shop is a fucking banger. I would argue that Move Something, Two Live Crew's second album that has hits like 1 and 1 and S&M. It's a hell of a record. Are the raps intricate and detailed and like complicated? Are the rhyme schemes no, but also that was not something that was, like most rap music of the late 80s was the rhyme schemes were not super fucking deep. Most of Ice Cube's best material is not it is not, this like flip of the fucking tongue, crazy fucking intricate, this rhyme inside of this and this, that's not what Cube ever did. I think Too Short has a lot of great dirty fucking rhymes. Pat Bayer says, what of Dirt Nasty? Yeah, Dirt Nasty is, extremely, derivative of Too Short. He would probably tell you the same thing. But in a lot of ways, Simon Rex is just, it's his raps are kind of Too Short cosplay in some ways. And it's great, and he's good at it. Yeah, I think Too Short is really fucking filthy. Yeah, Lil' Kim has some really fucking, some relatively nasty shit over the years. I don't know. I may say Wet Ass Pussy is a pretty fucking filthy fucking song. But no, it's the filthiest rapper in history. It's probably Cool G Rap in some ways. I don't know. Cool G Rap is fucking got some real nasty shit. Like Talk Like Sex is fucking gross. Like there's some stuff on there that he's advocating for that you just go like, oh God. What are you doing? DJ Polo, come in here. Help me. Yeah, Slick Rick has this song about butt fucking. I believe it's called Adults Only. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But who's the best filthy rapper in history that's mostly known for their filthy raps? I mean, it's probably Too Short. I don't know. Too Short got into, more mainstream territory with Blow the Whistle and some of that stuff. But yeah, it's, the field is wide open for some of that stuff. I'm going to get going. Dirt Nasty and Brother Marquise, the Two Live Crew, put out an album at one point, and it's not great. It's not great. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow with some more stuff. We'll play some video games. We'll hang out. We'll do some things. Head over to Jeff.Zone. Check out the Patreon. And I will see you in the morning, or I'll see you next week for the podcast, depending on what you're into. Bye.